Okay, so my name is Carl Brown. Like I said, I'm the assistant director at CETLA. That's at Howard University, the Faculty Development Center. And like probably a lot of you folks here, I do lots of different jobs, but only get paid for one. One of the jobs that I do is flipping the classroom and teaching workshops about pedagogy, specifically around technology and assessment, right? There's a big movement now talking about flipping the classroom when department heads are looking at their resources, looking at their students, looking at student outcomes and saying, what can we do differently to affect more positive change on all of those? A few housekeeping rules. Everything that I put up here, it will be available to you digitally. Upon completion of the workshop, I'll email you, and then you can distribute it so you don't have to worry about taking copious notes. And also, I gave you the paper because a lot of folks like having paper, but you also, if you don't want it, you can just put it back on the stack and use it later. Also, we're being recorded. So any curse words or foul language are gonna be showing up and maybe distributed to the university. So you want to be careful of what you say and who you say it about. We have lunch at 12. We're breaking for lunch at 12. Lunch I won't forget, but I have a tendency to go kind of hard. So if you need to take a break, it's like, Carl, you've been talking a lot, or we've been talking a lot. Give us 10 minutes. Just raise your hand or throw something at me and say, hey, 10 minutes, and I'll give you 10 minutes. Because I don't always do that. I just kind of go really hard. Lastly, this is a very kind of hands-on workshop. So hopefully you all have a copy of your syllabus with you, and it's going to be the type of thing where I walk around and talk about, okay, this part move here, this part move here, now we can do this. So hopefully, if everything goes correct, at the end of this workshop, you would actually be able to take a class and actually kind of outline what you would do to flip elements of your classroom around specific topics. So that's kind of how I see folks looking around like, oh, really? Nobody said that? Well, nobody wants to hear me talk for all day about that. Lastly, if you have any questions or if I'm unclear or you just have something to say at any time in the presentation, you can just raise your hand or you can say it. Either way, I don't want you to think this is going to be me talking at you for hours and hours and hours. So I love the university here, but I've only actually walked through it and looked online. So there's lots of elements that I may be talking about that are maybe available, unavailable. Carl, we covered that, why you don't have to worry about that. That way we can just kind of get through the presentation and shape it more to what you want in particular. All right? All right. So, all right. It's my contact information. It's my work email and my work telephone number. It's almost impossible to reach me by my number. But when you call that, go to the secretary and she'll put a note on my computer. I have like 3 computer screens and she'll stick a note there and I'll make sure to get back to you. I don't even have the phone in my office on. Like I took it out and put it in my closet. So if you call my number, it just goes straight to voicemail. Email is how you hit me. 24 hours, I'll get back to you within 24 hours. 24 work hours. So if you hit me Friday, 5 o'clock, you're not going to hear from me until Monday. So, all right, any questions about me or about the presentation before we get started? Go ahead. All right, so let's talk about workshop objectives. I'm just going to kind of lay them out here for you so we can talk about it all at once. All right, so during this workshop, we're going to be talking about how to define flipping the classroom. What exactly is it? So we have common terminology. We're going to identify steps in the flipping process. So we're going to say from traditional class to now we're going to flip some elements or flip the classroom. We're going to choose appropriate assessments to ensure that students complete online learning activities. I did take a look at your LMS, your learning system, Desire to Learn, and it's a capable system. Does everybody use it here? Great, so that's going to save us a lot of time then. So we're going to talk about how to manipulate some of those elements to help you with that. We're going to talk about selecting course content that should be recorded or posted online. This I'm not so sure about. We'll talk about this in a second, whether or not you have the capacity to lecture or content capture, and if you don't, what options are available for you, and if you're rich, what are some better options that are available for you. Any questions about these objectives? I have more objectives, but any questions about these right off the bat? All right. Like I was saying, all the files I'm talking about today are going to be available at that Light website, and I'll email you so you can distribute it to the rest of the group. All right, and then we're going to talk about, we're going to complete something called a course redesign worksheet. It's actually in these sheets of paper here, and it's going to be an outline of what you're going to use and to help you kind of structure what elements of your course are going to be moved to a flipped environment. We're going to choose appropriate assessments. We're going to list types of in-class learning activities. So the idea is, okay, now that we're taking content and we're moving it over there, what can we do in class now to promote active learning? Then we're going to determine how to best evaluate the effectiveness of your flipped or hybrid classroom. Talk about 2 different things. One is kind of a scale thing that you can do individual, and second is going to be more of a departmental idea or function. So if you have something, if you have an organization central who does assessment, then they'll be able to use this kind of model of assessment that we happen to use at Howard University. So those are all the workshops objectives. It's a lot of stuff, but it won't seem long, hopefully. All right. Any questions or anything? Is there anything missing from there? Like, oh, Carl, I thought we were going to talk about such and such. No? Okay. Well, let me stop right here then, and let me, if we could, I could go around the room and introduce yourself, your department, the course you're thinking about possibly flipping. And I won't remember your names. I'm going to try, but I won't. But I just want to get an idea of who I'm dealing with. So whoever would like to go first, I don't want to point out anybody. I don't want to suggest that anybody go first. But if anybody wants to start.
To go first.
Oh, awesome.
Since I was late.
Perfect.
Oh, I'm Doreen Medlin, and I'm in the Department of College Education, and I'm going to try it with IFCI, Integrated Life and Earth Science.
Okay, great.
That means I gotta go next.
Absolutely.
I'm John Williams, Professor of Biology in the Natural Sciences Department, and I want to do this with anatomy and physiology too.
Okay.
Anthony Cooper, of Natural Science, and possibly biology 111 or 112 online. Possible.
Okay. Oh, well, you thinking about moving to a fully online version?
Oh, it is fully online.
Oh, it's already online.
Yes.
So you're thinking about,
Trying to inject some new things into the class.
Okay, all right. I don't talk specifically about online courses. That's a whole nother day workshop. Actually, it's a couple week workshop that we do. But if I see something that's like, oh, this might work well for you online, or maybe you want to consider it, I'll definitely point those resources to you.
Sure.
I'm for a chemistry professor, and I'm interested in doing this in biochemistry.
Okay, Balchem. Everybody gets a turn.
Melissa Gosden, Professor of Sociology. I'm looking at this for gender roles.
My name is Tim Hughley, and I'm looking at fitness assessment and interpretation from the Department of Health and Human Performance.
Okay.
Lee Feng, and professor in Department of Mathematics and Computer Science, and I wanted to do some new techniques in my Math 4000 and 4111 more than Algebra 1 next semester.
Okay.
Richard Mason, Chemistry Department of Natural Sciences. I'd like to apply this to Chemistry 1211, it's the general chemistry course.
And Shay Jones, Natural Science Department. I'm going to try to apply this to a Biology 2, 112 course for major.
Shayla Williams, Natural Sciences, and I want to apply this to the Intro to Biology course for non-majors.
Kendra Merchant, Natural Sciences, Biology, and I'm going to apply this to my Anatomy and Physiology Part 1.
Janelle Fudaway, Math Professor in possibly like algebra.
Rhonda Porter, mathematics professor, and I'm looking at possibly flipping some components in a technology course, technology and math.
Okay. So, am I understand that everybody actually intends on doing this? Is that, so, is it the kind of thing where I work with departments where I say, hey, I'm going to talk about flip the classroom, and it's like, great, because this has already kind of been shoved down our throat, Carl. Thanks for, is this a shove down the throat type deal? No? You just organically came together, everybody in multiple departments said, we're going to do this because it's the best for our students. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes. Oh, hey, I'm sorry. How you doing?
Yeah.
Yay, all right, I'm flickered. All right, so like I was saying before, I work at Howard University, CETLA, which is the faculty development. We're a full-service faculty development center. There's 2 instructors. We have 1,200 faculty members. We do everything from grants to teaching classroom, things like that. We have a lot of resources on our website. Everything from, not the lecture I'm giving, but we have different guest lectures who come in, things like that. We also have some online workshops, activities, and resources. We use Blackboard as our course management system, not Desire to Learn, so some of that information might not be useful to you. But if you go to our website, not right now, of course, and if you look under teaching resources and teacher strategy, you'll see areas like flipping the classroom, selecting digital media, and things like that. As we go through the presentation, I'll talk about where those things are specifically located on our website. Not that you'll remember exactly where they are, but that you'll think globally, like, where exactly do I find a rubric on how to do peer assessment? It's going to be on our website. So all that information is going to be there, and it's organized fairly well. All right. Okay, so what is flipping the classroom? Flipping the classroom, it frees up classroom time for teachers, for more teacher-student and student-student interaction, right? Flipping the classroom allows you to spend more time in the classroom, helping students apply what they've learned online. It means you can engage students in more class discussions, more group activities, more active learning things, et cetera. It's the idea that you kind of get out of the lecture business, or you're getting out of the standing in front of the students delivering content business, and you're getting into the active learning to help students have a deeper understanding of what it is you were talking about. That's kind of active. That's how we define flipping classroom. That's how most folks kind of define it, with a few differences. Hey, let's get it. We need an intro from you. Who you are, which department you are, what class you're thinking about flipping, and then why you were late.
That's a good one.
Too many questions. Manil Kumar Devarapur, faculty in mathematics department.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about numbers and applications.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
This is for the middle grade.
Sure. All right. Thank you very much. I wasn't really going to make him say it while he was. Come on, guys. All right. So more terminology: flipping versus hybrid versus online. And we've actually had a lot of conversations about this at my university. Like, what does it mean to be a hybrid as opposed to flipping? So this is kind of what we came up with. Hybrid is the same number of face-to-face class meetings. So if you meet Monday, Wednesday, and Friday all semester, if you're teaching a hybrid class, flipping the classroom, you're still going to meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday all semester long, right? So you're still going to have that same face-to-face time. There are going to be elements of your course that you're going to deliver to your students outside of class, of course, but you're still going to meet with them every time. Hybrid is less number of face-to-face classes. So it's the idea that some of the things I'm going to give you online are going to replace my face-to-face interaction time with you. Faculty members and students really like this one, the hybrid. I think at Howard we describe it as anything over 30%. So if more of a third of your class, your face-to-face class time is going to be online, we consider it a hybrid course. And then an online course is there's no face-to-face class meeting times at all. So the vast majority of classes are delivered online. At our university, if you're teaching a hybrid or an online course, you're required to be certified, distance learning certified. And that's something that it's going to show up more and more at universities, because a lot of folks are like, let's teach distance learning, everybody claps their hands and run full speed, and then we find out some folks are running quicker than others, and some folks aren't running at all. So then a lot of universities are coming back and saying, okay, let's kind of standardize what we're doing online, and that's the way we do it as far as hybrid and online. So why do it at all? Well, first, it allows instructors to accommodate students' learning styles. Right? So there's different ways that students learn. If you're lecturing in the classroom, you're generally giving one or two. If you incorporate some of the flip the classroom or hybrid techniques that I'm going to talk about earlier, then you can talk to different types of learning styles. You can also do in-class activities, laboratory experiments, fieldwork, case-based assignments, role play, problem solving. If we have some time, we'll do some role play. I brought some puppets. You're gonna love it. I didn't bring any puppets, but I do have a role playing activity. That is, I tried the puppets. Folks don't like it. Folks don't like playing with puppets and trying to make a child's voice, and folks don't like that. So the hard science folks liked it a lot, actually, but not everybody else. So what are some other reasons to flip the classroom besides my director said I'm going to be flipping the classroom?
Does it increase student engagement?
Yes, absolutely. Increase student engagement. And the other reasons, why do this at all?
Increase student responsibility.
How so?
Because if you're doing a fair amount outside of the classroom, then they're going to be required, my understanding, they're going to be required to take care of that before they come back into the classroom for the next session. So rather than just kind of wait for you to give it to them, they're going to have to go get it and bring it back to you.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, you said student engagement, but I didn't ask you why do you think student engagement?
Because I think it helps the kids read it or do whatever they're supposed to do, and then kind of think about it, reflect on it, and see exactly where it fits into what they already know.
Oh, excellent. Anybody else? Why do this? What's wrong with teaching the way we've always taught, the way that most of the folks in here are my age, what's wrong with teaching the way that we were all taught when we went through school? You know, why all of a sudden do we have to teach? You know, why do we have to do this hybrid?
We have a different generation.
Different. How are they different?
They are, well, that's a really good question. But they're more tech savvy. They're less, I won't say obedient, but they're less less likely to do something because you're just because the teacher said so. They have to control it to a certain degree. They got to see whether the end is going to be, and they got to see that it's relevant for them. That's why I say just don't participate.
For folks who've been teaching for a while, have they also seen a difference in the students who come? Sorry?
What do you mean different other than that?
Are there any differences, like folks have been teaching?
Attention spans?
Is that what do you notice short attention spans?
Yeah.
All right.
I've been teaching for 42 years. I don't see shorter attention spans. I see their attitude allows them to show that they're falling asleep in your class, where we were well trained and not to show that. We pretended we were paying attention with, but we were glazed.
Sure. Pinch your thigh. I didn't let that out.
Exactly.
All right. There's lots of research on that, and I do a millennials kind of workshop. It's more correlation kind of research and aha things. But are students fundamentally different now than they were in the past? Probably not. Do they have access to more things that change the way they interact with students' material and the content? Yes. All right.
Do you think they're not as disciplined to be large textbook readers because they see that a lot of it, if they could get on there, they could search and get it quicker?
I can't speak to why. Like I don't know why, but I do agree that the idea of giving a student a 500-page textbook and say, read this, we're going to give you a midterm and a final, probably not anymore, considering that nobody goes to one source for information anymore. So in that respect, students might have a difficult time with that. And I'm sure if I looked through all of your syllabus and tested you and looked at your materials, you would have more than just like a textbook of things. I'm not convinced that students are more technically savvy than their professors are now. I know it's kind of the popular idea, but what I see is they're very good at going to social media sites, ask them to build something, ask them to fix something, ask them to explain something. They fall right back into the undergraduate mindset. So, all right. Another reason a lot of people say why flip the classroom is the idea that accreditation boards have come down and said no more lecturing. We want to know that the students learn the information at a higher cognitive level. Therefore, you need to engage in more active learning experiences. This is especially true for medicine, nursing, and fields like that. Pharmacy is another one. So that's another reason why I've seen the move to flipping the classroom and having folks engage in active learning strategies. All right. All right. Like I said before, a lot of things I'm going to talk about, I'm going to say in brief. But we have at Howard a flipping the classroom teaching strategy. So if you go there, we have examples of flipping the classroom. We have case studies. We have materials that you can download. Most of it is broken up by field, so you can go in there, take a look at your field, and see what things have been done already. There's no reason to create the wheel. So that's there for you as well. All right, so let's talk about some of the challenges. First, will students study before class? That's a big one. That's a big one, right? That's if you can make students, especially undergraduates, read before they come to class, I mean, you'd be a millionaire, right? So that's why so that's the big one. When students come to class, you can have the best designed role play activity, but if the students don't read the content before they come to class, then what are you left with? You're left with the role play that doesn't work, or you're left with having to go over the content that students should have done before they got to class. So that's one of the major challenges. Also, assessing the quality of the classroom and online participation. How do you assess whether or not the students are learning what you want them to learn when you do a group activity? How do you assess whether or not the group is functioning in a way that you think is beneficial for all the students in the group, especially with online activity? How do you assess an online group activity? So that's one thing. Also, a lot of this is new to students. A lot of students now have been introduced to course management systems in which they can get content online. That's fine, they're used to that, go in there, getting the reading, doing the homework, come to class. But by and large, when they get to class, it's generally the faculty members or the teachers reinforcing what they've already learned online, not actually going in and looking for a higher level of understanding. So this is going to be new to students. There are going to be some students who will take to it right away. Those early adopters are going to be some students who are going to be resistant, and then most students will kind of fall in the middle and move in a positive direction depending on how you mediate or moderate the online and classroom experience. All right. So what are some other challenges that you see happening?
Just plain technology access. Something was raised in the dorm and we won't be able to get something online.
Yes.
An excuse like that.
Yes, that is, and if it happens on Tuesday, they won't tell you Wednesday. You know, I wanted to turn it in. And that's a great access to technology, how to use the technology. You have a fairly robust, or at least online, it looks like a fairly robust system for technical problems and difficulties. The ticket submission system. I sent a sample thing in there. See, I got back to me pretty quick. I don't even work here, so how's that working for? How's that work for you and the students? Oh, fluid and dynamic. I like that. Okay. Depends who's on. All right. Any other challenges with flipping the classroom?
Yeah, ironically, you have students, very few, that are not technology savvy. So right.
Yeah, non-traditional. Exactly. That is a great challenge. And I'm not an advocate of the faculty member being the IT support specialist. It's not your job. Unless, of course, you're teaching a specific application design for your course. Like if you're teaching SPSS, well, you may have to answer some SPSS questions. Yeah, that's a great challenge with non-traditional students. Anybody else? No? All right.
What about time? The time.
What do you mean by time?
Time we have, content we're supposed to cover during the semester, and if we focus a lot on this type of activities, it might affect our,
Absolutely. Math, your biology. So your biology, you have these things have to be covered. Biology 1, period. Like we have to make sure our students are hopping on these. So I don't have to, where am I going to find time in my classroom to be able to do these great student interactive things you talked about? How do I make sure my students can do the content? A lot of that we'll talk about when we talk about moving things online and creating online activities and assessments online to try to cover some of that content to make sure the students have an understanding of the content so that you kind of free up that classroom time to do the more in-depth things. But no, you're right. That is a challenge for a lot of folks, especially folks who, there's kind of systematic. They know exactly what they're going to do day to day, lecture to lecture, day by day. You help me, and it's in a lot of workshops, when I start walking around, they'll take the syllabus and put it in front of me and say, okay, you tell me which one we're going to move out and move online and how to do it. And we'll do that later on. So, all right. Any other challenges that you see? No? All right. So let's talk about some of the things that can be done here. All right, so you have Desire to Learn. It's a fairly robust course management system. You have different tools in there, everything from creating tests, posting assignments, etc. Discussion board, everybody's pretty familiar with this. How are you trained to use this? How do you learn how to do this? Try on that. So there's no kind of there's some workshops? Oh, I see faces. I know he's a guest, but tell the truth now. Well, you are not alone. You are not alone in this boat. There are plenty of schools, and even on a department level, where they get this great technology, they kind of throw it out there at you. It's like, hey, now we can do this. And you're like, how? And what kind of support? And who's going to support the students? So we'll talk about this a little later about your Desire to Learn, the different tools in there. But you certainly have the capacity now to do a lot of the things that I'm talking about. You also have the Wimber classrooms. Everybody familiar with this? You also have access to this. People shaking their heads. Some folks looking around.
That's good for archive and things like that, but sometimes.
Yeah, and for folks, does everybody know what Wimba is? No, all right. It's a synchronous online learning platform on which students and faculty members can log in at the same time and interact. You can teach the recordings. You can, I think on yours you can do voice and video recording as well. You can also designate specific students. It also is archived, so students want to watch it back later. It works well when it works. If it doesn't work, it's awful because everybody's kind of logged in at the same time. So if it doesn't work, you've kind of wasted that time. The content doesn't get covered. So. In theory, this is a great tool.
I think they have something else called, there's another name for one that we have for Desire to Learn that works the same way. It's like an online classroom. Get a whiteboard and everything. That's connected in. I can't think of the name of it right now, but there is another system.
The ASU that you folks have?
The Georgia.
Georgia system. What did it do?
It's something else. I can't think of the name.
No, not that way. I can find it and figure out what it is. I've seen a lot of folks use Wimba instead of the way it's classically designed, where you have students log in, you're talking at the same time, where the faculty member kind of records content. So the faculty member goes in, creates a class, doesn't have any students log into the class, but speaks as though the students are there, recording the content, and then making it available for students later on. All right. So this is the way I would suggest, unless you have a lecture/content capture system, which I didn't see here. Okay, folks, glass-eyed. Okay, so this is what I would suggest as far as capturing content. Carl, I'm going to give them the readings, but I need to talk to those students in 10 to 15-minute blocks per topic. It's probably the best way to do it. That way you don't waste a lot of time making mistakes, and the students can jump specifically to the topic, and you can copy it over for next semester because it's topic-based. Sit down, 10 minutes, record your content. It captures your desktop so you can bring up different applications, explain what you mean, capture that and make it available for students. So that's another way to kind of take your content that you would normally deliver in class or lecture, use Wimba, record it, make it available for students. And by the way, when you do that, you also need to make an assessment or a short quiz after to make sure the students actually got through the readings, or at the very least, understand what it is you're talking about. Does anybody use Wimba like that now? See, it was worth the drive out here. See that? So that's available to you right now. And you don't have to worry about does it work, does it doesn't work, because not everybody's logged in at the same time. So when it works, you can record it, and then it's going to sit there. Usually the playback works pretty well. The archived, they call it. All right. And you said there was another University of Georgia, because you have Georgia has a consortium for technology for a lot of stuff. Let me look that up. All right. Textbook publisher tools. Textbook companies are moving more and more towards dynamic media as opposed to just words on paper. So if you're using the Pearson or any other large textbook company, they have online components that the students can access and you can access. There's a caveat with that. First, I don't work for textbook companies. I think a lot of their practices are ridiculous, to be honest with you. So if you're working with a textbook company, a lot of times what they'll do, they'll come to you and say, hey, faculty member, here's a free book. You like our book? Oh, by the way, we have free online assessments and tests and activities, and it's free for you. You don't have to worry about it. We're going to charge your student. And what they do is they charge the student. And the way they do it is student buys a new textbook. Back in the new textbook is a code. Student goes to the website, types in the code, they have access to the stuff. Marvelous. Used textbook. Okay, so next semester, student buys a used textbook, go in the back of the book, code doesn't work anymore. Call the company, new code costs as much as new textbook. So they're kind of slicing out the used textbook market. And a lot of our students need that used textbook market. So that's something you really have to consider. There are some alternatives. A lot of publishing companies have the ability to actually give you kind of course cartridges or test banks. But you have to kind of request those. If you just say, what's your online stuff, they'll put you right to their kind of portal, you have to log in. But if you request a test bank or something like that, they'll give you that reluctantly, and you can load that up into Desire and Learn. So you don't have to worry about making those chapter or daily quizzes. The content is already there. Not all books are available that way. Most of the big ones are. Your math would be that way. Your chemistry would be that way. Your biology, depending on what book you're using. So that's something to consider. We talked to the rep. Any textbook reps in here? Okay. what else do you need? What else do you need here at ASU to be able to deliver content to students online? Or think about it like this: I went to this other university and they had this, and it was awesome. We need that here. What other things do you think you would? Oh, yeah, that's actually a big in the faculty development kind of arena. That's actually a big thing. Is well, we assume that our students will be able to go into WIMBA and desire to learn and just be able to just do it magically. And some of them can, most of them can, but there's a cadre of faculty out there who can't. I don't want to point out the non-traditional student, but a lot of time it's brand new, so they may need a shorter or a longer time to rev up the speed. That's excellent. Anybody else? Oh.
From Albany State, but somebody in Georgia needs to stick with one system.
Consistency? Come on.
Yeah, there you go, consistency.
When you say one system, what do you mean?
One platform for, like, Desire to Learn's new. We had something else last year. We had something else the year before. I mean, you know, I'm old. I don't have time for this.
Well, the good news is they're all starting to look like everything else. So in that respect, it's better than it used to be. But yes, you're right. To log into a...
But like I had my stuff in Moodle, then I'm supposed to take it and put it in Desire to Learn. And it's just as much work as doing the beginning development of that course. I'm working twice to do one task.
Yeah, that is, especially when you're making multiple transitions over LMSs, that's got to be an extremely difficult thing. We did do something like that, and one of the things we built in was, okay, because we're giving you all this money, you take all of our courses and load them up in your new system. Like, we're not going to require a faculty member to do that, but we're a small university, not a statewide system. So you went from Moodle to Desire to Learn.
With the Blackboard to Moodle.
Blackboard to Moodle, want to save some money, and then. And how many years?
3.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on. If you said 10.
I've been on those. Okay, so in my 3 years, I've been on 3.
I mean, if you said 10 years, I'd be like, oh, come on. But 3 years, really? That's too much. It's but hopefully now you have Desire to Learn, and you're going to stick with it for the next 15 years.
2.
Because they won't be bought out by Blackboard in the next 6 or 7 months, right? That's not going to happen. So, all right. What else is missing? Well, what else would you like to see this university have?
We need something, a capture like the WIMBA that works consistently. I think the one that they do have is expensive, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we have right now.
So you need a more consistent lecture capture content.
Skype. For small sections, but you don't have the tools.
Sure.
The black whiteboard and all that. That does give you that contact with students.
And everybody else kind of has this feeling about WIMBA? The idea that some folks haven't used WIMBA. Oh man, you're missing out, man. It's okay, yeah. Go to the website, your IT section. Wait, do I may have a hold on a sec.
I'll check with. I can't find out what we're going to have. Because WIMBA's not going to be the best tool right now. It's not fit.
Just a second.
I'll find out the other information by the time you have your next break.
Okay. You said next break, like I'm already a break behind. But so, come on, Carl, get it together, man. Am I a break behind? Well, no, we only go for 30 minutes, man. Come on now, okay. So yes, you definitely need a consistent lecture capture tool. Our university actually went through that whole process of, do we get Integrity? Do we get WIMBA? Do we get some other things? Do we get, we're going to keep Blackboard, we're going to move to Sakai. And it's a troubling process to select, and it's even more troubling to migrate over, and then to train and support it's our office. We do all of that. So it can be very time consuming and extremely frustrating for faculty members who are required to do this kind of flip in the classroom or distance learning, and they don't have these type of systems. Something else that I saw, I went to, where did I go? I went to a school, was it MIT? I think it was MIT. No, it was not MIT. Bowie State University, right outside DC in Maryland, in Bowie, Maryland, come to find out. And they had access to a video archiving system that I hadn't seen before. It's the idea, so if you see something on the news or see a story or have a movie or a movie clip you want your students to see, you don't have to Netflix, bring it in, show the students, or find it on YouTube, clip it and kind of give the look to your students. You can actually have your students go directly kind of into their LMS, their course management system, and click on it and view the movie. I thought that was nice. So all the Time Life movies, all the PBS movies, all the documentaries, things like that, the students can go right in and take a look at either the whole thing if you want to, or specific sections. If they had their own movie, they could bring it in and they could kind of digitally archive it and make it available for students as well. That's nice. I don't have that at my university. I didn't see that you had that here. But I'm surprised there's not more of that, especially as we move to more of the Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. I'm surprised I haven't gotten into kind of the academic game. If somebody's looking to make some money, you may want to go and pitch it to them. All right. Anything else? What about mobile technology? Is there any push here to kind of provide content mobily? This is not a really commuter campus, right? Most students who go to school here kind of live on campus. Kind of, sort of. Okay.
Are you meaning like tablet?
Right, developing content to be delivered on tablets or things like that. Yeah, well.
There is room for ebooks.
Ebooks, yeah, that's a popular idea, is the ebooks. And everybody's familiar with what ebooks are? All right. When you select the ebook, make sure to ask the publisher how long the student gets to keep the book or have access to the book. Because I was under the assumption that if I bought an ebook, I can keep the ebook as long as I keep the regular book, and that's not the case. So publisher companies love it. They love ebooks. They give it to you. Yes, ebooks, half the price, haha. In 30 days after the class, the student have access to it. Some classes, that might be appropriate. Other classes, we have to build on content, math, science, etc. Where maybe you want to refer because I got through calculus, but I don't know calculus. You got to go back and check it out again. There's no more ebook. So that's something to really consider.
We're actually looking at Merlot free book accesses to try to decrease the cost of school.
Oh, excellent. Let me know how that works out, actually. I'm kind of curious about them.
I actually saw that they have a new app, a small app maker that you can migrate stuff from your learning systems over to apps so that you can pull it on the phone. I was going to try it on the phone.
Do you know what it's called?
I have to go back through my email. Someone sent it to me, but I played around a little bit with it, and it seems kind of interesting. So I'll go through and try to find it and send it to you.
So it migrates the content the desire to learn and puts it in a mobile
if you have something online, you can migrate it over to that. And then if the students download the app, they can get that on the go.
Yeah. Kind of awesome. I wish I would have included it in my list I have here. All right. So here's some other online teaching tools. Most of them are free. Some of them have a little bit of cost. You may want to think about using. VoiceThread. Anybody familiar with this? All right. So the way VoiceThread works is there's a content that's put on a computer screen. It can be a movie, it can be slides, it can be a document, it can be whatever you want put on the computer screen. And then students are required to look at the content and then comment on the content. But in commenting, they can write or they can record their voice. And it's kind of nice the way it's set up because the content's in the middle, the student records their voice, then all the voices of the content kind of appear around the content in particular. It's great for group exercises. So if you want your students, instead of saying students, I want you to do a group presentation on this topic, and then they go right over the PowerPoint and they make their little presentation like I did. You can have them go to VoiceThread and say, hey, I want you to make a voice thread. It requires the students to not only learn an application, but it also forces them to not just type, but also to be able to have to articulate by speaking their ideas about the content. So that's there. I think it's free for 25 students. So if you create different groups in your classroom, I'm pretty sure that all of them are going to have different ones, right? POPPLET.com is concept mapping. Cool. Everybody's familiar with concept mapping? Yeah, well, I'm thinking of it more of as online brainstorming. There's lots of tools that do that. This is a particularly nice one I like to use, but there's quite a few of them. Poll Everywhere. Anybody familiar with this? Oh, okay. So Poll. This is something here. There are colleges, there are departments at my school who require students to come to the class with a notebook computer. Is anybody like that? They're kind of a notebook college? No. Okay. So there are students. Let's suppose you have students in the class with notebook computers. Most students here have phones. You would notice them because they would go off while you're teaching, or that was terrible, right? Or you'll see them in class, or yes, I'm paying attention, I'm taking, So Poll Everywhere allows you to take the laptop computer or the phone and respond to slides that you put up on the screen. So you kind of put a question up on the screen, they'll use their phone or their tablet to respond to the question. The results are then shown to the students. If you have under 30 students at a time, it's free. It's Poll Everywhere, where we are beta testing it, which is the wrong terminology, but that's what they called it. We're beta testing it now to see if it's something we're going to incorporate for the entire university. I think if you want to ramp up to an enterprise level size, it's either $8,000 or $10,000 a year. We have some larger classes that need more, but it's an interesting system. It's for that student engagement when you're in class, so that's possible there.
Will it do something different other than what clickers would do? Like clicker?
It's very similar to the clicker system. Because you're not actually using a clicker, using your phone or your tablet, you can ask more sophisticated questions that the students can respond to. So you can ask kind of open-ended questions they can respond to. If you pay a little bit of money, you can do kind of group competitions back and forth and things like that. It does not integrate smoothly into Desire to Learn. It did into Moodle. Not that it matters now, but do folks use clickers here? Yeah. Oh, all right. So do the students have to buy one when they get here first, and they use all their classes all 4 years? Oh, you sets? Okay. It's very similar, except for this one's free. So take a look at it. It's a little bit slicker than a lot of the systems. Next one is the ck12.org. So this is a place for free digital textbooks, lesson plan, quizzes, and interactive activities. This is the place to go to look. They are trying to move to I would say it's much more for undergraduate, first, maybe second year, basic content. So it's looking at like AP classes, AP, calculus, AP chemistry, different things like that. It's also very good for remedial if you have folks in your, who's like, I know you think you want to take algebra, but you need to take this first. It's also really good for that. In addition to online digital textbook, you can also kind of create courses. I'm actually teaching a chemistry course now to my niece. She's not happy because she thought she'd had the summer off, but she used the ACE AP. I keep telling you, you're going to save money if you do it. But so this is something very useful. When you look at it, it's primarily designed for high school, but also kind of advanced high school. So I know the lines between advanced high school and first, second year college are kind of blurring a little bit. It's an interesting tool. I would take a look. What do you think about these? So these are other online resources that you can use. This is basically things that you can do to help take your lecture or your content that you would deliver to your student and present it to them online. These are just some options.
So you're saying that website has some free digital textbook?
Yes.
And I saw my student also have find out some website. I'm teaching calculus 1 right now, and they found out because I require them to have a textbook, and so they some of those can somehow find out a digital copy, but it's an old edition of the textbook, and then I asked them if this is free, and then they said it's free. I said, do you hack this? And then they said no, and they just found it. But how legal that part that is?
All of it. All this is the legal slide. Towards the end, I'll start talking about stuff you can do, but wink, wink. But the
copyright or anything like that. I mean, like the copyright.
No, you don't have to worry about any of that here. Now, you certainly don't want to go to VoiceThread and post chapters of your textbook. That you cannot do. But your notes, your slides, or content you create, everything like that, sure. All of these are perfectly legal. The ck12.org, they are in the business of basically helping students reach that Common Core thing. So everything they do is you don't have to worry about it, especially their digital textbooks. So, all right. Yeah. Oh, this is being recorded. So I would never mention anything that was illegal ever. That'd be unethical.
What's the use of the recording? We have other people who can't be here who be able to benefit from how to flip.
Are there any other online teaching tools that folks are using?
So you won't use the call later in the future?
So no one's using any other online tools?
You mean like sometimes I use Dropbox and my kids can put stuff in there and do assignments in there.
Okay, so are everybody familiar with Dropbox? So why Dropbox instead of the Dropbox feature in Desire to Learn?
Well, because I have stuff in there and I am not gonna change it. And every time I have a class, but, when they accept stuff, then I get more free spots, more free space. That's so selfish, isn't it?
That's a great idea, though. Write that down, yeah.
Just don't give them that chance. But it's easy for all of them because they've already been doing it in other classes.
All right. Anybody else use any other? Does anybody use Facebook to teach? Good, don't. Don't use Facebook to teach. Anybody use Twitter? That's another don't. Twitter.
I do use GroupMe.
What's GroupMe?
GroupMe is where the class can put everybody in one class puts all their information, their cell phones usually, their numbers, and then I can send out messages. I can send out if class is canceled. I can send out don't forget you have a quiz just in the GroupMe, and I just have to do one message and everybody gets it.
So. I'm gonna write that first.
Usually kids have two GroupMes, one where I'm included and one where I'm not included.
Sure.
Yeah, they can talk about it.
Remind me 101.
Well, hold on, let me get that in a sec, but let me talk about GroupMe. So students don't want to have to create an account, right?
No, GroupMe's an app.
An app. Okay, so they download the app, and then the app has information about the first name, last name, phone, etc., email address.
Oh, I remember his phone.
So, okay.
Yeah.
And so then you send a message and it gets pushed to them.
Yeah.
Huh.
And then if I say, don't forget you have to bring this homework, and the kids ask each other for help on that. Because I get all, when I'm in their GroupMe, I get their messages, so somebody will say, does anybody know how to do this one?
Okay.
Or I'm stuck on this one, and then they'll start talking to each other on it.
Okay. Well, but it sounds like a great tool. What I will say is if there are universities where faculty members will run into trouble using a tool like that, especially the type of universities who kind of frown upon the disclosure of their students' personal information to third-party vendors. And that's something that my university in particular has been struggling with. Their argument, our university's argument is, these are our students, we're going to protect them, we're not going to, kind of send them out in the world digitally. And so the kind of capability that you're talking about exists in the course management system, so their argument would be, use the course management system. If you want to push an announcement, send an announcement, it can automatically push to the students' phones, they can go and register themselves, and that way we're not disclosing their information. But that's just something to consider.
Like, you can't see the GroupMe for like my Physical Science 101.
Sure.
Unless you're in my group.
But now GroupMe sees all of your students, the class they're taking, their conversations, what's being said, any contents. That's all corporate now. And everybody, all the corporates all have that information, we all have that. We're not going to disclose your personal information unless something terrible happens, like we get bought out by somebody who wants to sell your information type legal disclosure. Yeah, it's just something to consider. I know. We've had other elements of that where teachers wanted to say, I'm going to make a Facebook page. And wait a minute, you can't require students to have a Facebook page to deliver content type deal. So that's just something to think about. What were you saying?
Remind me 101.
What's that?
The teacher will register and get a phone number, so you don't use your personal phone number. And then the students will call into that phone number and leave just their name. And then I can send a text to their phone. They can't send back and they can't talk to each other, but I can tell them something real fast and it'll get to everybody.
Oh, all right.
What, the assignment as far as assignments or?
Right. Don't forget test tomorrow.
Sure. Okay.
They missed that class is canceled due to weather. They don't know that.
All right. Sounds like a great tool. Similar, not exactly, but really similar. But same kind of concern. Like you kind of, why do that in this instead of using Desire to Learn, which has that kind of email all your students?
See, phone numbers change and this kind of thing. So you have the student right there. They can call. They can put in their current most accurate phone number.
Sure.
And I can just hit them from my phone.
Okay. No, fair enough. Yeah, I would say that I've seen very few universities where faculty members have that kind of access to students' cell phone number. through the course management system. Most of the time, the course management system is kind of email-based, which works well with smartphones, to be perfectly honest, because they kind of push to your phone anyway. But there have been experiments at Virginia Tech in particular after the shootings where they kind of wanted to, let's get everybody's number so we can send emergencies to students. And Howard has something like that. It's been difficult for us to kind of to regulate or come up with something systematic that allows us to get it when the number changes or the phone dies and et cetera. So,
well, I use both tools as far as D2L and Remind Me 101, but I think about it in this perspective. As far as today's generation students, which one are they going to be quicker to see, D2L or text from the cell phone?
Sure.
So that's my mindset as far as using that tool.
Sure.
And they can't send back.
Right.
It's just
Right.
way.
Exactly.
So all that, whatever you send me, you got a testimony.
Go study.
Don't forget your homework.
I understand. Yes, no, I understand completely. Once you start that, it'll be difficult to go back. It'd be difficult to say, well, I know your last professor used this, but I'm going to post all my information on Desire to Learn. So the expectation that you'll log in, or Desire to Learn can also push. You can also push stuff to you. And I imagine every student here has a university email. Do they use it? No. See, that's something that you do have the banner system. So the banner system allows them to set up a forwarding to whatever email address they want. So that's something you want to consider. But we really kind of stress hard that this is your professional school email. Everything university-based is going to go here. It's your responsibility if financial aid is going to be closed, if classes are going to be canceled, such and such, if there's an emergency on campus, snow, all this stuff is going to be pushed to your Howard University email address. Therefore, it's your responsibility to have to check that. We emphasize that. It works better sometimes than others, but it sounds like those two tools probably works a little better than email because it goes straight to the folks' phones.
Oh, I just wanted to make a comment. At ASU here, we have something called emergency alert system. That when there's a thunderstorm or severe weather or whatsoever, and then they will call actually I received a call from my office, my home, my cell phone, and saying that, and then later when it's over, then say, okay, then they call you again, saying that is that right? That is one thing. And then also ASU also in our syllabus, all the syllabus, we have to mention that ASU students, the ASU Gram email is they have to have the account, and also this is the main mean that the school communicate with students.
Okay.
Right, this is a requirement basically, but students do not check email. That's the problem though.
Okay.
I wasn't aware that there was a way they could go in Banner and forward their emails.
That function.
Something that we could get that.
Well, let me. I'm sorry. Let me take a half step back here. Banner has that capability. Whether or not some IT person goes, click, now they can do it, or click, now they can't, you may have to have a conversation with folks. But it's just a one box that somebody clicks to activate that functionality to allow something to be pushed. All right. Nobody uses Google Groups or Google Sites, Google Docs, Google Forms?
Yes.
This is the online, that's what we talk about here. Okay, so that's another example a lot of folks tend to use. Same thing, it's still corporate, but it's some wonderful tools. If you Wiki Pages, another one. So if you have doing a group project, the type of group project where you think that the content the student produces is going to be carried over outside of the classroom, maybe they're making a resource for the community or something like that. Google Sites, Google Groups, Blogger is a great place to kind of have that material, as opposed to putting it in the Desire to Learn environment in which you kind of have to be part of the university to kind of get in there. So just something else to consider. All right. So now that we have moved some of our content, so we use all not all, but we use a lot of the online tools, and then we select the content to move online. So now what can we do in the classroom, right? We can do student-centered content. Student-created content. One of my absolute favorite, the idea that students get together in a group in a classroom with a computer or in a lab and actually produce content based on what you expose them to online. Also, independent problem solving, inquiry-based activities, project-based learning, which is a whole nother 3-day workshop on problem-based learning. Is anybody familiar with that process? It's nice. It's not easy. It's not easy. I generally suggest that folks incorporate elements of problem-based learning in their course as opposed to going through a whole, we're going to do problem-based learning, because it can be a lot, especially the first time. Role play, if we have time, we're going to go through a role play activity. I think I talked about that. So what other things can you do in the classroom now that you don't have to lecture?
Can I just ask
Sure.
Student-created content, is that like a student presentation?
That's one type, and that's the most people think. You think student-created content is you get together and they make a presentation, but you can also have them making digital resources. Something I like. So let's say you're talking about biology, you're doing let's say physiology or biology, and you cover something on asthma. So the student-created content will be, okay, before you get together, make a pamphlet, and I want this pamphlet to outline the effects of asthma, how to avoid it, the resource people can use. Make this pamphlet, make it a PDF. I'm going to print it, we're going to distribute it. That kind of thing. Or maybe you're teaching a chemistry course, and for to come in and say, okay, we're going to make a report, and the report's going to be the amount of lead that exists in the school water supply. So I want you to go around with this, walk around, and test all the water. You're going to come back, look at the results, analyze the results, because we already know the content. We talked about that online, and we're going to write a report or generate something to give to the university. And if you do that, don't mention my name, because that doesn't always go well. It didn't go well at our university at all. So that's the kind of stuff that I mean by created content. Right. So what else can we do? What else did you want to do in the classroom? What do you think we can do?
Use alternative assessments.
Sorry?
Alternative assessment.
What do you mean?
Instead of just doing a paper pencil, do your assessment in maybe with pairs or just different things instead of just paper pencil tests. Actually having the reports or giving kids a scenario, small groups a scenario, and each of them has to solve how they think that scenario would be best solved, and then debating those the pros and cons of that.
Excellent. That's case-based kind of teaching. You present them a case based on the material, they look at it, talk about it. It's great. Actually, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Case-based is excellent.
And I think we learned from the previous workshop, we can do something called differentiate. I mean, you put into several groups, and then they work on, each group work on different projects according to the level. It's called differentiation. Is that right?
Differentiated learning.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then also, we can do something called high HIP. It's called high impact.
High impact.
Tactics. Practice. Is that right? Dr. Rexwell? Is that high HIP? High HIP is high impact, what's that?
High intensity, high impact. Right?
Oh, okay.
Oh, high intensity, high impact.
Intensity is high practice.
Did you like those methods?
We're going to use it next semester. I'm going to use it next semester in that course I mentioned before.
Okay.
To see if that can improve the productivity and also increase the students' learning and efficiency.
Okay. Excellent. All right. You can also do service-based learning here as well. So I don't know if you take field trips here, but you can do that now in the class, because I know every faculty member has content that they think is useful. They want to go to the community to show that's applied, but you can't do it. If you have to get through this content, you can start doing stuff like that now as well.
Can you give an example of service-based learning, please?
So your education, right?
Yeah, I'm science.
Science too. Oh, okay, so let's say you're teaching a topic on elementary education, working with children. You do a lecture on autism, right? This autism spectrum. Is that too far away?
No, that's fine. I have no idea what to do with that. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, no problem.
No, I mean, go ahead. I mean, I know what autism is.
Oh, okay. So you give the lecture, and the students, they understand it. Okay, we get how we pass the test. We can answer all the questions about autism there is. So service-based studies, you can actually take those students and go into the classroom and have them do an activity with an autistic class or with an autistic student by pairs.
Okay, we call that clinical practice or field practice.
Okay, field practice, clinical practice, all right.
So yeah, we do that.
All right, service, yeah, okay. Well, never mind then. Everybody does that for all their classes? No, some people are looking around like, I teach math, what am I supposed to do with math?
Wouldn't it be cool if the math person went with an education person and they did it together?
Yeah, that That is excellent. That cross-disciplinary is fantastic. Sometimes it's difficult to organize, but it's a great idea. But also, I was just going to say, nothing helps you learn a topic more than teaching it. So I'm sure there are some students somewhere in this town that could use some help with math, at least one or two. Take the college level student and have them teach a particular topic. Now keep in mind, when you start doing things like that, now you start talking about taking students off campus and delivering it. I'm sure there's some logistics and things that the university has in mind for you to have to complete, but it's not impossible though. So
The university also does that, like a summer camp, and that would be a good place to implement that.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't have to go off campus.
yeah, exactly. Especially for like phys ed as well. Physical education. All right. So it's been an hour and 2 minutes, and people are giving me that look like, come on. So how about we take 10 minutes and then come back? All right. Okay. So we're officially back from break. See the way I transition to the camera? All right. All right. So now that we talked about what's possible online, we talked about where the challenges are, why to do it in the first place, we defined what flipping the classroom is. So now let's talk about, okay, I have a syllabus in front of me, how do I look at this and then determine what I'm going to move to an online environment, and then what type of online environment do I want to move it to, Carl, right? And we're going to do this, we're going to look at this as kind of looking at it as learning objectives. So let me ask you, there are a few different ways that faculty members come up with learning objectives. There's the faculty member sits down, looks at the content, writes learning objectives, etc. And there's the other way where departments sit down and write all the learning objectives for all the classes. How do you folks do it? So, so some
Classes are departmental kind of classes, like college algebra, everybody has to take that, so everybody kind of syllabus. But then some of the other level classes are more specific to a faculty.
Okay, so in regards to learning objectives, I don't have the time to actually teach the learning objective writing workshop, which is it's pretty good. But I will talk about different elements of learning objectives to kind of help us understand what is exactly we want our students to know. And then based on what we want them to know, how do we then identify activities for them to accomplish our learning objectives? That's what we're going to talk about now. Question.
Yes, I still have that question. What's the difference between learning objective and also learning outcome? Because in here we require to do something called learning outcomes in our syllabus.
It depends. Most folks, when you think of learning objectives, is more global, and the learning outcome is more chapter or unit specific. That's how I've seen it defined. But most folks use them kind of almost interchangeably, almost. For the purpose of our workshop, I'm going to talk about them as objectives. But if you want to think about it as learning outcomes, that may be a little easier. At the end of such and such, students will be able to. Right. So that's if you think about it, whatever. If you have that at the unit or if you have it at the individual level, that's what we're going to work with. Students will be able to blank, blank, blank. But what? No, that's no good. That's no good. Or, no?
No.
You hurt my feelings. I'm just playing with you.
No, it's not you. It's not me.
Why are you so funny?
It's just that
So
question.
we asked that same question.
Oh, you also asked
Four classes.
Keep going back.
Yeah, I mean, and if you can even throw like learning goals on top of that. Well, we have learning goals, we have learning objectives, we have learning outcomes, learning activities. So that's generally how it goes down the line. All right. So. Let's talk about, has everybody heard of Bloom's taxonomy? Yeah, okay, so good. I won't spend a lot of time on that. But what I will do is pull up my little revised sheet here. See if I can find it. Can everybody see that? It's also in the package here. But you know what? I can't see it. Nope. Let's see if I can smartboard it. All right, so this is a model learning objective. You don't have to incorporate this, but it's kind of interesting because they've taken something called the knowledge dimension. And what that is, that's basically the types of knowledge that you want your students to have, whether you want them to have factual, conceptual, procedural, or metacognition. It's just another way of thinking about it. And as we go down the chart, you'll see how that's how it relates to the to learning outcomes. In regards to metacognition, remember that's thinking about the way students learn the information. So you're kind of thinking about the way they learned about it. It's a higher end. But usually the first three, factual, conceptual, procedural, that's usually where you want your students to fall. Does that sound about right? upper level classes, graduate school, you start talking about a little bit of metacognition. Also, if you are teaching some of the counseling, so you're doing counseling education or social work, any type of therapy, things like that, you also want to talk about a lot of metacognition as well. Mm-hmm. So let's go on down the line. All right, so this should seem this cognitive process dimension, this should seem pretty familiar to everybody, right? Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create. And then underneath remember we have recognizing, recalling. So does everybody have this chart here? Great. So if you could, I'd like you to pull out your syllabus. All right, can you have that in front of you? And you want to go, let's go ahead and start your first real topic, skip past the introduction and such. And we're covering your first topic. What is your first learning objective for that topic? Or from that lecture? And somebody's going to share over there.
Yeah, I have one here.
Go ahead.
The first one is after successfully complete this course, students should be able to read and write abstract algebra proofs. Read and write.
So they'll be able to read and write what exactly?
The proof.
Oh, proof. Okay, sure. So by reading and writing, you're probably talking about recognizing and recalling.
Okay.
Right. So you're right here at the remembering, kind of the first stage, which makes sense for an introductory algebra class. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? What do we have?
Review and analyze client data to formulate a plan of action and or conduct a physical assessment.
Oh, okay. So you're up there then. You're up there in the analyze and evaluate. So you're up here. So okay, the reason why I asked this, so you're up here in analyze and evaluate. There's nothing wrong with that because we should all try to get there. Where do they learn this? Like where do they learn to actually the vocabulary or the anatomy? Like do they learn it in your class as well?
Yes, but I think within the curriculum it's what's the word for it?
Builds on each other?
Yeah, it builds upon each other. Thank you.
Okay. So by the time they get to you, they can already classify.
Well, I would say the lower level where you can, I can't see that chart by the way.
Oh, see anything? You get a paper?
So when I can identify and
okay.
The lower level,
sure.
When we get here, you can analyze.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's fine. So when you start talking about some of the analyze, evaluate, and create, even apply, when you start talking about these, it gets a little difficult to do these in online environments. You can do them, but it gets a little difficult. A lot of time when you're talking about analyze, evaluate, apply, you want to kind of do that probably in a face-to-face interaction. So when you're thinking about what particular content I want to move to an online environment, you probably want to stay away from these three right away. Towards the end of the semester, sure, you can start thinking about them again, but you really want to stay in there, remember and you understand. Somebody else. Everybody gets to go.
I have a question about the
sure.
understanding. Oftentimes they say that that's not a really good verb or an adjective.
Oh, it's a terrible verb. Yeah, it's just that's just the name of the category. So under it you have interpret. Let me get you your sheet.
I got it.
You sure?
So,
all right. Yeah. So underneath the top, there's verbs that you can use, and I have another verb sheet on there too. Let me grab it here. All right, so you never want to say I want my students to understand, but you can say if you want them to interpret the information. So you want them to classify, paraphrase, represent, translate. If you want them to summarize something, then you're talking about down here generalization. And so this talks about this. These are the verbs that you want to think about using underneath the categories. And also on your in your packet, which I don't have. Oh, I have one. Also in your packet, I gave you a little cheat sheet. Yeah, right here. This one. So if you're into the objective writing outcome business, you can use some of these that also help you as far as writing your learning objectives. But like I said, this is not a workshop on this. I just want to talk about this because as you're looking through your syllabus now, and I changed my mind, we're not going to all go through this, but you're going to circle the specific things that you want to move to an online environment. So you want to think about the objectives that hit right here. All right. remembering, understanding, some applying, but usually, generally it's remembering and understanding. The higher end stuff you're going to do actually in the class with the active learning environment. All right?
I have some more in my course objectives. Like I have this one say determining if a system is a group. So determining and then I have verify something, and I didn't find the word here. Which part is that?
Determining?
Determining if something is belong to is called understanding. Okay.
Evaluation, verify, test.
Yeah, verify. Wait a second.
Yeah, but I don't think they're not actually verifying the proof, right? They're just.
I say verify a system if it belongs to what kind of, like the server system, right? You verify this is group, or this is a ring, or this is a field.
That's classifying. You're right down here. You're understanding still.
Still
You're calling it verifying, but in listening to what the students actually have to do, they're basically classifying. There's different classifications of whatever you're talking about, and they have to identify the specific classifications.
But you have to verify so that it satisfies this property in order to be in. Yeah, it's a classification first, but when you verify or determine that you have to check something in order to see, oh, this is this one, this is the other one. Do you see what I'm talking about?
No.
No. But you need to do something. It's not just by looking at it.
No. So there is a process they have to go through to put things in different categories, correct? Right. So that process is classifying, is what I would say.
Yeah.
So if this is black not because it's in the black category. It's black because it reflects all light coming in. No, those are the parameters that identify this category. This one, it reflects all light but red. It's still classifying, but yeah, you do have to have the ability to remember the content that you talked about in order to put things in specific classifications. You're still down here.
Okay.
Right. So if you're talking about evaluating mathematics, so now you're talking about you give the student a case study of a bridge, and you have to evaluate whether the architect took certain things into consideration in this bridge design. That's evaluating. That's way up here. But you folks. I know you're calling it, but you're still down here, and you understand. Does that make sense? I'm kind of babbling a little bit. Okay. All right. Do you understand, sir?
Yeah, I think we can understanding and also maybe high level. It should be higher than the understanding level, but because when you do the verifying, you have to do some analysis in order to see if this is belong to which category or whatsoever. I mean, so it have to be in the middle here. You say analyze that form. You have to do some analyze in order to classify. It's not just. It's not that easy.
Okay. Oh, I'm not saying it's easy, but okay, I understand. All right.
So it's distinguishing.
But isn't he identifying the attributes of? Right.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about their learning objectives? So everybody looked at their syllabus, they identified at least one or two learning objectives. They thought, okay, this learning objective falls in this remembering and understanding category.
Should every course have some remember understanding?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Well, especially as you start talking about some of the later courses, major courses, in the major course, generally you start getting into it to apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. First, if you're doing nursing, you're not getting in nursing, you're not your fourth year nursing student and still worrying about vocabulary. Hopefully you're not there. Still worry about vocabulary. And even in some, other nursing, teaching as well. So you start moving up here. Undergraduate, if you're talking about undergraduate classes, first, second level undergraduate classes, unless they're kind of advanced, you're here. You're here.
I think part of what I see when I transitioned from like junior college to university was that professors tend to not have trust in the kids knowing anything, so they want to reteach everything. That's number one. But number two, feel like that's the only, remember and understand is the only way you can really test them. because it's a test. There's a right and wrong. And sometimes when you get up into analyze and evaluate, there's not a clear-cut right and wrong, which might be harder for hard scientists, mathematicians, to believe that their kids can do it.
I guess I would agree with that. I would agree, especially with your first point about you get students in their third year and you think you're ready to jump up here and you find out you don't have this. So you do that whole remedial kind of module.
And you spend a lot of time doing that.
Right. So let's talk about that. So this sound familiar to folks? Mm-hmm. Students get in your class and it's like, well, you're supposed to know this. Mm-hmm. So you end up like going over it really fast type deal. That's the kind of thing you move to an online environment. So your remedial stuff, they get to you. You know anatomy. You should know anatomies and physiology before they get to you. But some of them won't. There'll be 1 or 2 transfers who just don't get it. So the remedial lecture that you would normally give, you put online. Our math department's been really big about this because people come in, they test in Algebra 1. And they get to Algebra 1 and it's like, no, they don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's still missing, even though they were able to pass the test. So what we did is took a lot of the remedial stuff and moved that component online. So, you take the test, you place it in
to an online environment that was in your class?
Yes.
Or did you? Oh, okay.
It's class-based. So you'll get in, so that before they get to university, they test or take a score, you get placed in Algebra 1. The faculty member gives their own assessment. And then based on their own assessment, you don't know this. So now you need to go back and do this module. So.
I have a last question.
Sure. Now you can have as many questions as you like.
In mathematics, especially the course I'm aiming at next semester I'm teaching, and we want students be able to prove a statement, so prove something. So proof, is it like the last one, like constructing a proof, proving something?
No. Oh, so a proof. So how can I put this? You give me an example of a proof.
Okay.
Off the top of your head right now. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So suppose you have just a look, but I mean this is too advanced. But let's look at some high school geometry. Say you want to prove that these two lines are parallel, and then you have to check. Say, okay, is it this angle equal to this angle, or you prove that two triangles are congruent? Then you have to check. You have to prove something.
Yeah, so I think what we're doing the mistake is mathematics has a particular terminology that refers to how you solve problems that correspond to a lot of the stuff that you see up here, right? But it's not this level of thinking, right? Let me show you.
Because I even see that you have a list here. I cannot see any.
Yeah. Let me show you. No. Hold on. Let's get back up here. So this is I talked about it and I went over briefly. Maybe I should have went over more detail. So this is the knowledge domain, right? So this is how you want your students to learn from the concrete to the abstract, right? So if you're talking about what the level you're talking about, a lot of it is factual, but also conceptual, right? Do they have knowledge of the criteria to determine when it's used appropriate procedures? You have to do that to solve a math problem, but you're not actually doing that to say apply mathematics. So you're not giving them you're not telling them an equation or a proof and then saying now you take these 14 blocks and you demonstrate what we just told you. Hands-on's an example, but it doesn't have to be hands-on. But that's kind of the example that I'm trying to illustrate, is that taking the information and then applying it implies taking that proof that you taught them and then taking that proof and then applying it to something that's not that proof or something that's related to that proof. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. So now you can now that you remember you can understand the proof. Now you take that proof and you launch this computer application and you solve this unique problem.
So if you're talking about triangles, have different kinds of bridges and see which triangle or which type of form. What do we call triangles? What kind of triangle does best on supporting a bridge? So is it the triangle that's up like this or a triangle like this, and have the different groups do bridges and test them, and then they've applied it and they've they've used some, they can compare and contrast which one did better.
The best example is you have an equation, quadratic equation or cubic equation, whether they have a real roots in particular interval. So that can be fixed here. So you have to remember.
Okay, so that example is like which one?
That work for these things, like understanding. If you want to see a real root, you need to know whether it follows the intermediate value theorem.
Of course, I understand.
So apply, then that theorem you will apply for that problem, the particular equation.
Okay.
And you will analyze, you check like all the conditions, whether it satisfies. Okay.
So
then you evaluate and then you will conclude.
Okay, so you said your opinion is get to the first 5 level, right? You
Yes.
cover the first 5 categories.
Yeah.
How about the point? You are
Sure.
the
Oh, wait, hold on a second. Everybody gets to talk? Everybody gets to talk? Go ahead.
It depends on if you are doing something new. If you have taught the student how to write a two-column proof for this scenario, and then you just change the numbers or the figure, but you're still at the understand level. Okay, because the procedure is nothing in addition to. You've given them, like, you start off saying alternate interior angles are equal. If they're equal to 2 lines of parallel. Now, if you just draw a new figure and say prove that these 2 lines are parallel, you're still at the understanding the rest.
So it depends. Yeah, because
You're going to have to jump up in there if you want.
Okay, so a question about the remediation.
Sure.
Putting it online,
Okay.
remembering and understanding. What happens if the percentage is really high of the individuals in your class that does not remember or recall the information previously? Is it okay now not to put that information online and now bring it into the classroom or no?
What subject matter are we talking about?
Biology.
Okay, so biology builds.
Right.
Right. I guess you're second level biology then?
Yes.
So by the time they get to you, they're supposed to know first level and they don't.
Right.
The problem with teaching first level biology and second level biology is that they've never learned second level biology, right? And you can't go back and smack who's the first biology teacher? I don't know. If you could take the first biology teacher, maybe you could take it to them in a faculty meeting, and I'm sure you argue about that all the time. You send them like kids up and they don't know it, etc. But I don't suggest you actually, I think you still move it to an online environment. Otherwise, they'll never get biology 2. So you get it in, the first thing you do is an assessment. You know, and what I have seen, the assessment can be the final they took last semester. You give that again, it's like, oh, you didn't tell us to study for the finals biology 1. You take the semester, and then you have an understanding where they're at. And then, depending on how you do it, you can have the student, you have to require the student to jump in and finish the remedial module concomitantly while you're teaching the second part. Otherwise, you'll never get to. And if this was like my undergrad, they would just flunk you. So these are our students, so it matters what we do to our students. So we're not interested in just flunking our students out because you don't know it. But to remediate them means they're going to have to do it on their own.
Do you know if the learning systems allow students to go back to old classes and look at their content?
It depends how it's set up.
Okay.
Design Learner certainly has that capability, but whether or not it's structured in a certain way, I'm not sure.
Okay. Because the reason why I ask is I'm at teaching part 2 now. I have students from part 1, and as I go through questions, if it's something that they should have learned in 1, the room just gets silent.
Yeah.
And so I want to, and I can tell them what lecture it was that you should have gotten it, but it would be much better if they could go back to that class and say, okay, remember in chapter 3 of part 1. You can go back there and review it, then I won't have to migrate it over. Sure.
Yes, here's the problem with that. 1, students won't do it. That's the biggest problem. It's like you can, all you have to do is log in and click last year's biology and watch the lecture again, you'll be fine. Of course, there's going to be students, and there's always that 10% who are going to do it, but they knew it anyway, so they're not going back because they already know it. And then there's going to be some folks who never do it, and you can do about them. But the folks in the middle, you're going to have to actually motivate those people to do it. It's not just good enough to say, you need to do this in order to be successful in the class. You would think it would be that way, but it's not. You have to actually incorporate that into the course that you're teaching and assign a grade value to it that'll affect their grade in the course. So if you might have to migrate that stuff over and create a remedial section, this is such and such. You need to, you need to take this. Now, a good way to do it, so there's two good ways to do it. The first is to create mastery quizzes, right? Desire to Learn has the ability to create quizzes. It's the idea that you ask students, 15, 20 questions, at a particular topic. They have to get 100 in order to move on. In order to get any credit for this topic in this remedial section, you have to get 100%. But you can take it as many times as you want. Students generally think, okay, that's kind of a fair thing. Like, I can't believe I have to do this again, but I can take as many times as I want to make 100. And in that way, they keep drilling themselves with the course management system until they bring themselves up to speed. Now, of course, what you'll see at the beginning of the semester is students take it 25, 30 times, right? Or, and they do that because they take the test and they say, oh, I didn't get it right. So they have to go back, find their reading, read it, then answer the correct question back and forth. But of course, you're always randomizing the questions and things like that. So you'll find that students take it over and over again. By the middle towards the end of the semester, taking it 4 or 5 times again. Either way, it doesn't matter because you're not assessing them to assess, you're assessing them to learn, which is a new concept a lot of students haven't really picked up on. Yeah, so a test will help me learn, not ever for me. When I took lots of tests. Some I did well on, some I didn't. And the ones that I didn't, I learned very little from a test, especially when it was like a final. I take the final, I got a C. If you don't know what a C is, the grade underneath B. I know many of you guys know about that, but I got a C on the final, and then I look at the final, and does taking that test help me learn anything? Generally, no. But now with the new course management system and the mastery tests, they can actually do that. That's the first way I would suggest developing remedial modules, right? All right, so you provide content, you give them assessments, 15, 20, randomized, have to get 100% in order to make it. This includes math and things like that, vocabulary for physiology things, etc. The second way is to actually use the textbook companies. Now I know I jumped on the soapbox a little bit earlier about textbook companies destroying the used book market, and it's true, they do. However, they also have the type of resources that will prevent you from having to develop remedial modules. And that's nice. So, you can go in and say, you know what, you don't know these 4 things, take these 4 topics, and then they can log into the textbook company site, and then they'll take the test, and they can create mastery tests on there. The content shows up a few different ways, and as they get through the module, they're done, and by the time they get to your course again, they're already caught up to where they need to be. So, the difficulty is to determine which student needs which remediation and how to grade that. That's kind of a difficult thing.
Do you think it's an appropriate strategy to say, let's not try to teach all the content and say, instead of having just those lower levels of learning, decrease the content, increase the levels of learning, and see if those students now don't come to that second biology or the next class with more sustained knowledge. For example, if I'm in Dr. Williams' class and he taught anatomy and phys, and I go to another class and I said, well, what was your grade in Dr. Williams' class? Well, I got an A. Yeah. And then I said, well, tell me all the anatomy you know. And what that tells me is students just study to pass a test. And so the learning didn't take place. So, because we're trying to teach them everything. So why don't I teach you this really, really well? Introduce this. So, but now when I go to the, at least I know this really, really well.
Yes would be the answer. Yes. It would be more advantageous for students learning if they had less content that they had to master and more content, less content that they had to remember, but that content also was taken to a higher level. Because you're going to remember it better. You're going to know, you're going to understand it better if you're to this level. But the reality is, it's not the case. Right? So the reality is, and it starts young. That whole Common Core thing, they don't talk about active learning strategy. They talk about these are 6 things you need to get through. And accrediting boards that are coming down, these 6 things you need to do, I need them to test well on these 6 things in this course right here. So the way the hybrid kind of works is like, well, given that folks are going to make us cover this content, I can't cut out content, right? But what I can do is supplement the content in such a way that the learning that they would normally do by studying and taking the tests isn't all they have to do in the class. You still have to study. You still have to take the test. But now when you come to class with me, we're doing this stuff. With the idea being, because we're doing this stuff in the class, you'll understand this better. That make sense? That's the best we got so far.
But content does not mean the whole book.
Sorry?
Content does not mean the whole book.
Yeah, I'm talking about, exactly. I'm talking about topics. I'm talking about specific topics that need to be covered, right? I never talk about the whole textbook. And folks who are still making the student buy a textbook where they're only going to cover a third of it, shame on you. You don't have to do that anymore. You can go to any. There's at least half a dozen websites that I don't remember off the top of my head that will allow you to design a custom book. You can go in and say, give me this chapter, this book, and they'll print you a custom book and put it in your bookstore and students can buy it on financial aid.
Pearson will do that.
Sorry?
Pearson will do that.
Oh, Pearson will do that. Yeah, there you go, Pearson. Yeah. So if you know you're not going to, if you're only doing a third or 2/3 of the book, don't require the whole book. All right. So anyway. All right. So any questions about this, which I was only going to breeze through quickly. All right. Good. So on your syllabus, you've identified 2 learning outcomes or whatever your learning objectives that you are going to move to an online environment. And you're looking at learning outcomes based on this. You're here. You're remembering and you're understanding. You're not talking about applying, analyzing. These are active learning strategies you do in the class. We'll talk about after lunch. All right. So everybody find them. There is a sheet of paper in the stack of sheets of paper. And normally when I teach this workshop, I don't give any paper out because I require everybody to bring notebook computers, but that expectation, maybe I should have done that since everybody seems to have one now. But not all university faculty do. There is a sheet that looks like this. It says Course Redesign Worksheet. All right. Your name, course, online category, school, department. This is for your own thing, so you don't have to use this. A little later on, I'll talk about how we use it. Well, I guess I talk about it now. So the way we use this sheet, and this is not our sheet, and you'll see at the bottom here that was adopted by somebody else. Anytime that I use materials from another university or another department, it's always usually in the bottom right-hand corner where I got it. If it's a link, it's where. So I don't have a page of references at the end, but on the content you see, it should list it there where to get it. All right. So we didn't create this. We made it a whole lot better. But you'll have a digital copy. You can make yours a whole lot better. So the way we use this is faculty members come in the summer. They take a 2-day flipping the classroom or course redesign seminar. During that seminar, they fill out this sheet of paper here. And then what we do is we work with them with the rest of the summer to help them complete what they want to do here. It's actually physically, you say you want to make a test, that's how you make a test. So we actually do that hands-on kind of thing. It's for the summer. A lot of universities are doing that course redesign seminar. We weren't the first, we won't be the last. It's a little expensive in my opinion to do. It's labor intensive for a summer. Not so much for you, but for us, for the staff folks who, it's a lot for us to do during the summer. Anyway. So that's how we use this piece of paper. Right here, purpose and assessment. What would the students be able to do at the end of this lesson? Go ahead and write your learning objective there. Right now. On this paper. Yeah, no, this is hands-on. Yeah, no, nobody gets to pretend. Yes, sir.
This is how the lesson plan.
So I'm sorry, you just did the 1 or 2 learning objectives. In the box here it says lesson, select the course content that we move to an online environment. So now you're talking about if you want your students to read chapters 1 through 6, that's the content you're moving. Right? You should have that in your syllabus. Have you all migrated to those syllabus that are like 40, 50 pages now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So then you have all that stuff already laid out already then, right?
Yeah.
Not every, shame on you for not making that 60 page. So, and I mean, I get it. I understand why it helps lay it out for the faculty members because some folks are just kind of skating around. Yeah, anyway. The nice part about it is it makes it easier for accredited agencies so they can just collect the syllabus from the faculty members and get through the stuff. It's legitimate. But also, it also forces the faculty members to identify content that is important and not important, stuff they're going to cover and not cover. It identifies holes, especially in programs. And it helps you to understand why you don't need a student to have to buy that 300-page textbook, especially if they're not going to use it in the next class. So anyway, so you selected the course content underneath your objective. Everybody do that? Well, we're going to share these too. So I see folks looking at me like, I'm not doing it. That's who I'm calling on first. So yeah, right here in this book here. And we're only going to do one. We're not going to do your entire course. If you were mine, if I had you under my center, we'd be doing the entire course right now, and you really wouldn't like it. All right. So you've got the content. It's in those first categories, recalling or remembering. All right. So now the activity online. All right. So there is another sheet of paper. I know people are still writing, but we got to get through some stuff because we took a little bit longer than I thought. I'm not saying that it's your fault, but it's not my fault. All right. So there's a sheet of paper that it looks like this. It says the Bloom Digital Taxonomy Active Analysis. So basically what this is these are activities related to the particular cognitive levels that you chose, right? So if you want your students to understand, that's the level you want them to understand. You didn't use the word understand, you used another word to describe understand. Then you can have them subscribe, annotate. You can have them paraphrase, summarize, classify, interpret, make emphasis, example. So these are going to be the types of things you can move to an online environment, right? So these are going to be the actual activities that a student does. For instance, if you want your students to know 100 vocabulary words, right? The activity is not, I posted 100 vocabulary words, right? The activity has to be, well, how? What do you want to do with that? Do you want them to create something with it? Do you want them to be able to define it? Defining is pretty easy. That's just a Google search, so they probably don't want to do that. I had a really big argument with my kid's teacher about that. I was like, all she does is go to Google and cut and paste. She's not learning anything. Do you want them to categorize or tag? Do you want them to take an assessment on it? The answer is they're going to be taking an assessment on it anyway. So what you want to do is either give them the readings give them the readings if they need the readings, give them the vocabulary if they just need the vocabulary, and then you give an assessment to the students on the vocabulary. That's the online activity. Giving the vocabulary, giving the assessment. It's a type of assessment where you have to be proficient in order to pass it. They can't just take this, get a C on the vocabulary and move on. No, you have to be able to know this by 100%. Well, Carl, what happens if students, and I know this doesn't happen here, but sometimes there are students who do collaborative online learning exercises when they're supposed to be doing individually, right? They'll get together in a group and it's like, okay, let's get through it. That's fine. If they want to learn in a group online, that's fine. They can learn in a group online. The mastery quizzes are not designed to assess them. It's designed for the students to learn what the correct answer is. So, 15, 20 questions, random order, presented randomly. If you're really fancy, you can do it out of a question pool. So maybe you have a pool of 50 to 100 questions and you give them a random subset of 25. Blackboard allows you to do that. Desire to learn? I'm not sure. I think so. I think it does. So yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. So Desire to Learn allows you to make a question bank. Right, so you get a question, 15, 20 questions. You can also get this from the publisher. Remember, I talked about that earlier. For the particular topic, you load up 50, 100 questions. Take a random subset of those questions, 15, 20, usually 15, 20, 25 will get a little high. And you have the students have to make 100 on that before they're able to get any credit for that assignment. So even if they work in a group, oh, did you get such and such? What's the correct answer? That's fine. They can work in a group. If working in a group helps them learn better, that's great, as long as everybody's learning. Everybody has to make 100 anyway. So it isn't like two members of the group are going to make 100 and then walk out and the other two. They're going to have to learn it too. So that works fine for this type of thing. Right. You don't want to encourage that. You want to tell them everybody take an individual, but some people are not. So which just a second, look for the example. So, right, so the activity to be done online is they have to review whatever content. Either have to read the content or maybe they have to watch something. It depends what your content is. And I'm going to go around in a second and ask what the content is. And then your assessment message has to make sure they remember and understand what the content is. So let's do that. And I'll have to look for the example. It's somewhere on that machine. I'm just not sure where exactly. All right. So, sir, what content, what activities do you want your students to do online?
Online or classroom?
Online. Oh, hold on a second. So you shouldn't even be down here in the activities to be done in the classroom. That's the after lunch, the active learning thing. But if you're that good, okay, I'm just kidding. No problem. I probably should have mentioned that. Okay, so the activities to be done. What do you have them doing?
Actually, my lesson plan is like keeping the quadratic equations in mathematics. Quadratic equations. So activities I use online, like I do some different methods to solve those equations. So they need to I use some sample problems.
Okay.
Using multiple choice. So without solving also they can check whether the solution is correct or not.
All right. So their online activity is to go through the different types of methods of solving the formulas. Okay.
So then my assessment is I put a random quiz from the question bank.
Okay.
There you don't have the multiple choice. You really need to solve the problem.
Okay. Where do the students learn how to solve the problem?
We post the lecture notes, right?
Oh, okay. So let's back up a little bit. Okay. So the content that you're moving online is the lecture notes. That's what's online. So when it says activities to be used online, the activities is the students are to watch and review the lecture notes online. And when you're saying lecture notes, what do you mean exactly? What is that? PowerPoint.
PDF.
Ooh. Okay. PowerPoint's okay. Not really though, especially for math. No. So why not use Wimba? Right? Wimba, you can actually write out the equation and speak.
Yeah, but
PowerPoint, it's I guess if you have a tablet or a pen, is that what you have to kind of write equations?
write it, yeah.
Okay, well that's fine then.
I have experience with Wimba.
Okay, so I guess either one. Generally, I say stay out of PowerPoint for lectures because I mean, but I guess if you don't, right, as long as you can write with it, as long as you have the ability to say, you're solving a problem, you're circling. Now this is why I did this, and you can explain why. As long as you're able to have that kind of functionality in PowerPoint, that's fine. But if you're just giving notes and then you're talking about the notes, you gotta do a little bit more than that. You don't have to, but I suggest it.
So you're looking at like those Khan Academy type videos where the instructor is talking and writing?
Yes, actually, yeah. Yeah. Now, every topic. Now, don't get me wrong. Every topic is not going to lend itself to that.
Right.
But every topic, so there's going to be some PowerPoint, which is fine. You can have your students review the PowerPoint. That's fine. If that's your online content, that's great. I suggest breaking. If you're going to do something like a PowerPoint, don't put up 60 slides.
Yes. Small sections.
Small sections. We're talking 10, 15, 20 slides. We're talking 10 to 15 minutes of actually talking about a particular topic you want your students to review, and you want to do it by topic. So that'd be an online activity. So that's great. So your online activity is actually the lecture notes. The assessment then is what you require from them. Is you have a two-stage assessment. The first one is going through and solve multiple choice, and the last one is to solve by yourself. Perfect. There you go. All right. So put a note right here because now we're going to talk about what we're going to do in class. How you doing? Where you at?
My activity, students will be able to explain how in-bank activities regulated by various means. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And I will move my PowerPoint and videos as well online for them to view.
Okay.
On this. And then give them a quiz after.
So they're watching your notes? I mean, they're looking at your notes?
Well, right now it's only notes, but the whole idea is to put voice with it.
Voice over PowerPoint? Okay, there's nothing wrong with putting voice over PowerPoint. One, it's a huge file. That's the first thing. Is when you put voice over PowerPoint, it makes the file huge, and it doesn't stream. So what do I mean by stream? So that means when a student goes to watch it, they actually have to download the file and then load the file. If it's a large file and they're not on a high-speed internet access, it can be cumbersome and troublesome. Wimba streams, so they don't have to download the whole thing, and they don't have a copy of your PowerPoint. Maybe you want to change it, or maybe you don't want to have it out there, etc. So that's something to think about. That's one of the two limitations. Now, there is something called. It's by the Microsoft company that just came out with it. It's called Mix, I think. I have to look it up. I think it's called Mix. But basically, it allows that kind of Wimba functionality in PowerPoint.
Okay.
So that's something that just dropped. I haven't tested it yet. The rep was like, "Hey, Carl," blah, blah, blah. And I took a look at it, and it looks fascinating. It lets you do the kind of things that WIMBA or Tegrity would do with a PowerPoint lecture, and kind of puts it in a file format that makes it more suitable for students to download and look at. That's something that's there. It's I think I'll talk about a little later on, but that's there as well. So that's the only beef I really have with voice over PowerPoint. All right.
WIMBA, you part of,
Sure.
you part of the experience here with WIMBA, so in terms of realistically using that, especially if you want to do this in the fall,
Sure.
I don't think it's realistic when you think about doing that. So I'm trying to figure out how to do what I can do.
You use your most stable system.
Yeah.
If WIMBA does not work, do not use it. Because if you're doing a hybrid and you're requiring online work, it's going to have to work. Otherwise, they'll come to class and say, it doesn't work. And all the activities we're going to talk about after lunch, you can't do. So, if you have a reliable system, use a reliable system. All right, that's so good.
Yes, the selected topic, energy and the cell.
The cell, okay.
Yeah, energy.
Energy, okay.
Yeah. Activities we use mostly PowerPoint slides, literature review some literature and videos.
Okay, so you're having the students look at your slides,
Yeah.
you're having them look at videos,
Yeah.
and look at articles, I guess?
Textbooks, they read the textbook that,
So the textbook too?
Yeah.
Seems like a lot. So they're doing textbook, your
They
notes.
start with my slides.
Slides?
That's the summary of what I want them to learn.
Okay.
Then I will ask them to also go back to the textbook and review this article or topic that I discussed in the class.
Okay.
Then I support that with some videos for them to watch.
Okay.
This would be the activity that mostly going around.
Okay. So, and for the assessment?
The assessment mostly group type, activity like project or homework or assignment.
So, okay. Let's start with the group. So you gave this, so this particular topic, they read the pages you wanted to read, went through your notes, looked at the videos, and now you're having to do a group project.
Yeah.
You're skipping a step. How do you know that they did the readings? How do you know they watched the video? How do you know they went through the notes?
It's still part of the assessment also. There is a quiz. I will give a quiz.
So you're having a quiz after each component?
Yeah, after each two chapters, I give a quiz.
Okay. So this isn't 2 chapters here. This is think about what you would normally cover in a lecture. Like you normally don't cover like 2 chapters in a lecture, I imagine, right?
No.
No. Okay. So think about this as the first lecture. So the first lecture you have a certain, I imagine you do have some reading they have to do, some notes they have to look at, and maybe a video, all right? When you move into a wholly online environment, that you have to make sure they're doing all of it. A quiz works for some. A quiz works great for readings. You have a set number of pages of readings, so you can write some standardized questions for those. That's great. Lecture notes are a little more difficult. All right, so you give them a lecture note. Generally, you want to have them, I don't know how you would determine, I guess you can require them to read the lecture notes first.
All the classes I teach in class, they are not online.
Right, so what we're doing is we're moving the stuff you do in class online. Right, so the lectures you would be doing in class, we're going to move those to an online environment. The videos in particular, I don't think it's a good idea to give quizzes for videos. What's up with the picture? What's happening?
No, the videos, you just help them,
Well, see, if you're going to assign something online, it needs to be specific. Right, so this isn't the place to just put, these are optional this is optional that. Sure, you'll have a folder for that, but if you want your students to go through a systematic before class, it needs to be read. So every video you show needs to be directly related to the topic that you're covering.
Yeah, exactly.
So after they watch the video, I generally recommend like a discussion board assignment after videos. So you watch the videos. After you watch the video, go to the discussion board, and you respond to my thread. The thread would be, so I see you taking pictures, right? Why are you taking pictures? Who are you taking pictures for?
For our That program also is called
Yeah, you gotta let a brother know you're gonna take some pictures. Stand up and start flashing. That's all right.
Yeah, you just focus on whatever.
Yeah. Right, so, right. So, discussion board questions. You watch a movie. After you finish the movie, you go to the discussion board. You wrote a thread. Right. You're gonna say in 250 words. I'd like you to answer the following questions below. You have to be specific about the word count. You have to be specific about the type of language you want them to use. You'll have to be specific about the time frame you want them recorded in. So if you want to do it within a week or the same day. In general, you want all the online assignments to be done before they come to class the next time. And when you make a posting of an assignment like that, and I have some examples, I don't know if I include them, I do have some examples of different discussion board topics. You want to also require them to respond to other students' posts.
So is that an all-day thing? Maybe not having class face-to-face that day to give them time to complete all of that?
No, it's homework. It's pre-work, yeah. No. So you watch the video, and when the students are watching video, there's no hour-long video a student should be watching. Unless you're in video production, then probably. So they watch their video, 10, 15, 30 longest. They respond to your question, the question like, identify the themes, whatever question you have, and then you also want to respond to 2 other people. And when you respond to 2 other people, 150 words, etc. Right. That's the kind of assignment or assessment you want after a video generally. All right. That makes sense? And I have examples. On a computer, I don't know if I include them in the slide. All right. Excellent, though. Any questions about? All right, good. And when we're saying online quizzes, I'm assuming you're talking about desire to learn, right, everybody? Okay, good. All right. You're next on the table.
So desiring to learn. If I do that class that I'm thinking about, it's what my assignment that's going to be moved online is actually a review, because they should have already done cell organelles and their functions. So they would, what did you want first? ADD.
So, okay, what's the activities online?
The activities online, I'm going to, I like Dr. Rensford for reminding me, I'm going to have them review through that kind of that Khan Academy clip on the cells and their organelles. And at the end of watching that, they have to write a summary using the specific academic language that is associated with that. We call vocabulary words, the specific vocabulary words that are associated with the organelles. Then after they do that, they're going to classify the specific organelles as producers or consumers.
All right, cool. Classification is easy. That's just kind of a test where you match. That's easy. So 2 things. The problem with requiring writing, and I'm a big writing across the curriculum person, when you do it from remedial, so now you're in the business of grading remedial.
Yeah, and I'm not a big grader.
Right. So if you're doing this for remedial in particular, you try to want to stay out of you having to go in and grade. You want to automate as much as possible.
Okay.
That's something to consider. Second, if you're doing remedial, you're gonna want to put a pretest in there. Right. So you tell the students, I want you to review organelles. Wait a minute, I took this last semester. That's fine. Your first online activity is to take this pretest. You score 98 or above, you're done. You don't have to go through everything else. But if you don't, then you get 1 shot to do it. If you don't, then now you're going down this path. So remedial, give the students an opportunity to show proficiency. Now keep in mind, it's an online environment, right? So you do have to consider folks cheating and things like that. They do have access to their resources. So that's something you do have to consider. Normally, if you time it, you make the test available to everybody at the same time, disappear at the same time. So you have this, you set those kind of conditions to kind of limit collaborative test taking. But yeah, you definitely want to give them a pre-test and opportunity to demonstrate proficiency. Otherwise, it's kind of, why don't I take it again?
That's a good idea.
Yeah. All right.
So I guess I was thinking about something that I was just using in lecture this week. So I get Poiseuille's equation, which is used for blood flow. There's several components to it. And so the part that I'll move online is just general understanding of blood flow. So lectures about how pressure drives blood flow, heart circulation, and all that good stuff. And then the vocabulary as well, like with that online. And what I would like to do as an activity online is to have them do a collaborative blog post. And then apparently there's a function on like on the wiki pages and a couple of other Google Docs where if people log in and use it, they can change their color of what they're adding.
Yeah, right.
So you can see where they edited and see where they contributed.
Okay.
And then if it turns out to be well, I fact check it and then I can use that to focus somewhere else.
So I like everything you said. There is something you want to consider. Just a sec. Let me see if I can find it again. Okay. So you want them to learn basic information, right? So information they'll need to know about blood before they can get it to the blood flow. Basic blood flow information. So that's still down here, right? So in order for them to make a collaborative blog post or content for somebody, that's kind of a little bit more up here, right? So you want to assess whether or not the students understood this first, right? Now, if you're talking about in-class activities, that's perfect. You bring everybody, create groups, everybody bring your laptop in, we'll talk about what you're going to be doing in class. And now you can walk around in different groups and explain why what they're doing. But when you're talking about online, you really want to stick to kind of like basic assessments. I generally like to use blogs and wikis in either one, if it's higher level stuff that they're going to be producing for the environment, or if it's self-reflection. So nobody in here has nobody teaches a topic like that, but if social workers, counselors, therapists, there's a lot of self-reflection that's needed to teachers too, nurses as well, or more and more these days. So something like that, I think that lends itself more to blog posts and the wikis. They have their own little problems as far as, what if you read something that's inappropriate, et cetera. But something like the general kind of posting, creating higher level stuff or stuff you do in the class. That's not to say that you can't use it. If you don't want to use a discussion board, you can certainly make a blog instead of a discussion board. I know in Desire to Learn, discussion board is a little bit easier to grade, especially if you want to respond to other people's stuff. But excellent. Okay, I was going to go to you, but I'm going to come over here because it's kind of not fair if we hit this whole class, and by the time we get to this back table, they're like, "We got this." So we're going to start at the back table right there, and then come down this way. See, like, see, what you do? Thanks, Carl.
So linear algebra is one area that I'm going to focus on is system of equations, and there are different methods for solving system of equations. Elimination, substitution, and short method. So that's a video clip of what they will be watching online.
Okay.
Either via presentation, PowerPoint, or webinar.
Okay.
Might be a combination of both. Right. Activities to be used. The way I have it set up for my hybrid course now is quizzes online where I just have and homework where it's more multiple choice, but kind of try to shy away from questions like that because at the end of the day I don't know who's actually taking the exam. So
sure.
But that's the only thing I can come up with as far as right now.
All right, so you're giving content, videos and such online, and then so you want an assessment to make sure that they're watching the videos and that they comprehend them.
And I can pay you and say, go take this step for me, and I wouldn't know that. All I would see is your score.
Sure. So in class is where you're going to do the actual, now you can do two things. Because you're moving the lectures online, even though it's already a hybrid, so I guess it's already online, you can, one, call the students to the board. All right, you three, these are your three equations, let's see you work through them. And you can discuss as a class what they do right and what they do wrong. So you have that kind of feedback that you normally can't get to. And normally, like, you write an equation, students ask questions about it. Now they can solve three differences, you can talk about it. So that's nice. But also, you're going to do your midterm, your tests are going to be in class. Right. So I'm trying to think how to assess to make sure they watch the math video. So now I can look around and say, any ideas? Students are watching videos, PowerPoints on a mathematics topic. How do you assess to make sure they watched it?
Well, they'll be quick to watch a JV video, and you put a video about math stuff is, come on.
Go ahead.
Maybe something like a empty outline. You start an outline, give them the parameters for it, and they have to fill in the rest of the outline.
Awesome. Everybody hear that? I'm gonna write that down. That is an awesome thing. See? That is very good. Go ahead and explain it again for the folks who weren't paying attention.
Thank you. Somebody suggested that JP write it for.
There you go.
No, but I do agree with that though.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh, well, it's an empty outline where you start off a part of the outline and you let the student complete the outline. You put basic parameters on it and you let them fill out the outline, and that way you can test to see whether or not they've actually gone through what they're supposed to go through on the online.
Like 3 steps for solving an algebra equation.
Right, and those people should be able to fill the outline exactly the same.
It shouldn't be the exact same. You can also give prompts on the outline that require students to think about themselves. So, giving this topic, this equation, name a time in your life where such and such. So, the application, or even, when was the first time you were exposed to something like this or something similar? In the 36-minute, the fact that the 36-minute of the video, it talked about, blank topic. When were your first time you were exposed to this? So now they have to wait to 36 minutes, write the topic, and then think something personal. The incomplete outline is an excellent online activity.
And the outline might be, this activity might be hard depending on the size of the class. If the outline, I was thinking the outline, everybody's outline is different. Going on with Barry, you have the line going.
You can observe it.
But you got to break. This is not a video though, this is legal. Is this a meeting?
No.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's excellent. So folks should be going back and thinking, I can use an incomplete outline here. So, all right. Next person table.
I was looking at a computer technology class where we were looking at the TI-83 calculators or inspired.
Yes.
The first section in the book that we use go through the parts of the calculator. I have lectured that face to face, but I think that would be something that they can just either read through or do online, because it's knowledge level and parts of the calculator. So I guess I made a quiz at the end of the day. It's online.
Yep. Like multiple choice, I think it was fine for that. Basic calculator function, and I said basic, but that's why I stumbled in math actually. Very important, and it wasn't taught that long ago. It was kind of assumed that you're supposed to know it, and it hurt my feelings in Calc 2, where I showed up and everybody knew, if you don't know how to use a calculator, it's going to start hurting in the upper levels. Anyway, excellent. Any questions, any comments about that? I think that's a great idea. That's definitely something you want to move to an online environment. And I'm not even sure that I would, if you have, because this is a hybrid, right? You have the opportunity to then bring the students in their calculators in class and have them work through different things they're supposed to work through. That's probably more of a group thing. You 5 folks get together, this is the problem you have to solve. Give it to them at the same time. If you're using poll everywhere, you can kind of load the question up and have to compete with each other to kind of figure out what the right answer is. You can do that kind of stuff in class now instead of just talking about the calculator.
What's so amazing and interesting about the calculator is that students will spend over $100 for these calculators and don't know the features or they can just add, multiply, subtract, and divide.
Man, who are you telling? I got one of those kids. I gave this doesn't go online. It's just a calculator. What are you talking about? Oh, don't get me started. Until I told you could put equations in there. It's like, what? It's like, yeah. All right.
Well, since I kind of came after, you want us to explain how we're going to. I can probably tell you now.
So you're going to identify a topic that you're going to move to an online environment. You're going to talk about what the activity. Do you have one of these? Yeah, okay. Okay. So let's start with the I guess you can go ahead and start with the learning outcome, the purpose of these. What would the student be able to do at the end of the lesson? Let's start there.
Okay, the student, I want them to be able to describe the concepts with minimum notes, minimum of no notes.
Describe the concept with no notes.
Yes. For example, if I'm talking about photosynthesis,
Sure.
and let's say I'm talking about oxidation or reduction part of photosynthesis, that to show that they understand what oxidation or reduction is, can they describe that process to me or explain it to me?
Okay. Do you want them to be able to say it to you, or is writing it fine?
Well, it'll be both, because in the beginning there'll be group work,
Sure.
where they'll be presenting, and then I have a reflection, kind of like the last 5 minutes where they're just writing their experience.
Okay. Let's work on through the content that you can move to the online environment. So what content specifically are you going to move to an online environment?
Well, there's actually a graphic novel component, a comic book component that they'll be looking at. It's a comic book that's kind of converted from the textbook.
On photosynthesis specifically?
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Well,
so
I'm just giving an example. Like we have this, I'm looking at how comic books can be used as a teaching aid.
okay.
Okay, so let's say we take that equation and we put that in like a comic book format, and like I say, I can put that online so that they can read online.
Okay. So you want your students to be able to describe photosynthesis, and you're going to create and post a comic book about photosynthesis that you want them to read?
Yes.
Okay. People are shaking their head like we do all the time. Where you been, Carl? I'm going to ask how you do it in a second. All right. So now that you created the comic book and you posted for them online, so their activity is just to read the comic book?
We're talking about online activities or classroom activities?
Online activities.
Okay, online. That narrows it down. Well, I want them to be able to read it. And then after, their homework assignment would be maybe to write a paragraph or write a statement in their own words, not just repeating what they see online. And then for the classroom part of it, the next day, then we come.
No, well, let me hold you there. Okay, so they're going to read the comic book that you created about photosynthesis, and then you want them to write a paragraph about photosynthesis to make sure they understood what it means.
Yes.
A writing assignment.
Yes, okay. Part one, the light reaction part. Okay, the light reaction part takes place in this part of the cell, and blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Is there any reason you don't want to, why are you having them write? Not that I'm against writing, I'm just, why are you having them write as opposed to just multiple choice? Well, this is online, instead of just multiple choice.
Well, it's part of the writing part of the class. It's also a writing realized course that we have on campus, and it's integrated into the class.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. So yeah, so I guess they're writing then. Okay, so that makes sense. So their online thing is going to be the comic book. Is there a textbook? Do you want them to read a textbook too, or they just all they have to do is read the comic book?
The textbook, the comic book is supposed to supplement the textbook. If they're having trouble understanding the concepts in the textbook, then can they use the comic book as a backup?
Okay, so you're going to identify pages they're supposed to read in their textbook.
Right.
Is digital textbook or just regular textbook? And then they're going to read the comic book, and then they're going to write a paragraph or a couple paragraphs explaining what it is they understood about it. What level course is this?
This is the intro. These are non-majors.
You said non-majors?
Non-majors.
They don't like you. I'm just kidding. What I'll say is it's a lot. It's a lot to do for an online. How long are normally the writing? The prompt that you give them. What's your expectation for writing? Like how many words you want them to write, or how many pages do you want them to write on photosynthesis?
Well, I'm trying to just free write 5 minutes. Tell me what you can, and then a 5-minute time span.
How do you grade that?
Well, it's really an all or nothing. Did they do this or didn't they? And then based on how it's worded, I can tell. Yeah.
So the problem with that is you're not actually assessing whether or not they know photosynthesis. When you do the all or nothing, you're assessing their ability to basically 5-minute write, which is a valuable tool. But you also have to assess whether or not they understood the specific concepts you're talking about. So you have to assess those specifically online if you're moving if you're going to move this online. So that would be after the comic book, you can have them You could have them create a comic book. You can even have a writing assignment, but the writing assignment has to be for them to articulate specific things about photosynthesis that you can then grade and assess whether or not they know. Does that make sense? Otherwise, you don't know. So, any other comments about that?
Maybe you can use some short answer questions instead of just an essay. Like you said, like maybe ask them where does the light reaction take place? What does the dark reaction entail? Kind of split it up into different parts and short answer questions instead.
Or explain some process, something.
I think you can ask them to present to the class and then let the student to judge if this is correct, the concept is explaining right or wrong. You see what I'm saying?
You just have the ability to do that. You mentioned earlier, I would also suggest, like when you think about those prompts, is to write them on a personal level again. So, having somebody explain a process, but having them to explain the process with a plant when they grew up, it's a little bit different. So you want to kind of have it, or if you went to Home Depot, got a plant, what kind of plant would you get, and where would you put it, and how does it affect photosynthesis? Something that has them pull from personal knowledge to kind of keep folks from just, okay, here's the answer, here's the answer, here's the answer. It's going to be a lot of work. How large is the class?
Usually about 27.
27. Okay, so that's not bad. All right, so that's what they're doing. Remember your topics and write these down, because after lunch we're going to come back and talk about, well, now that you did this, what can you do in the classroom? That's where we're going with this. All right. Any questions about that? I also think an incomplete outline might be nice for too. I like that for almost everything, but I think also an incomplete outline might be great as well for you. So you provide an incomplete outline that they have to then fill in. Okay. How do you all make comic books? Let me understand that. How are we making comic books out of topics? How's that work? Okay, afterwards, that's fine. So everybody else knows, just me who doesn't know?
No.
I know.
Is it an application that you're doing?
I draw it myself.
You're drawing comic books?
Yeah. I'm taking the concept from the textbook and I'm creating it into a comic format that they can read.
It takes a long time, right?
Okay, that's all right. That's quite awesome, actually.
Like I said, I have to show you.
Sure, and you may want to think about selling that too. All right, let's go over here.
Okay. So, my name is Li Feng, and the course I'm planning to do this is called the Math 4000 4111 Modern Algebra 1. This course is for math majors, senior students. And so I said the troubles in assessment. Okay.
Wait, it's Algebra 1 for seniors?
More than algebra. It's like extra algebra 1 for seniors. Mathematics seniors.
Okay. So it's a book, calculus. Where are you at here?
More than calculus.
Oh, you're above?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, okay.
Not the college algebra.
All right, that's why I'm asking. Okay, thank you. Okay, I got you. I was like, what? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The name is if you just the name has algebra, but algebra has different names.
Sure. Okay. All right, I got you. All right. So senior level math class, algebra. Go ahead.
Right. So I wrote down here things. Students are able to, at the end of this lesson, students are able to, number one, understand the concept of computation and the geometric group. Number two, can perform operations on computations. And number three, can analyze the commutative law on computations. And then the lessons here, I say the contents basically focus on two things: computation operations. And then the activities to be used online is I put down saying that students first find online activities, which is like game night, like playing games, activities online, and related to computation. So, to give you some concept how to do it. So, suppose I ask you how many ways to flip or move your matrix so that you know that the matrix on the back, and they suggest you after maybe 3 months or 6 months, you want to move it so that it can be evenly used. You see, do you use matrix?
Mattress?
Matrix. Not matrix, matrix on the back.
Yeah, I use one. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they suggest you to either flip it or rotate
Sure.
after some time, right? 3 months. So my question is related to permutation is saying how many ways you can do it.
Whoa, okay. So,
but anyway, there's some type of activities, online game or whatever related to this. So I ask students to go online to find some hands activities related to such things like flipping and also translating location, and then the assessment method. I will ask students to present in class and to see if they can correctly explain what's the concept of computation, and also to see if they can correctly perform the multiplication or something called computations operation.
okay.
So activities will be used in the classroom.
Let me stop you there, because that's after lunch. That's after lunch stuff, no problem. So, okay, so you have your students reading the content and then going out and finding simulations that represent it. It's 1, 2, and then you have the students responding to other students, or they respond to themselves in regards to identifying the specific equation related to the simulation.
They will present to the whole class. So a student will come to the whiteboard.
Okay.
And then present something explained to the whole class, saying that okay, if you do this, it corresponds to what kind of computation in mathematics. You see the hands-on activity, for example, you will say I rotate this, and then you say in mathematics how do you write this.
Okay, I got you. So the online activity is basically identifying the simulation related to the equation, and then also you need to at least write the equation that you're trying to solve in the online activity. That's excellent. And you're giving them the content to be able to solve the simulation online as well. So they're reading the content or watching the content if you have a movie, they're going out finding the simulation, writing the equation, and then after lunch we'll talk about, since you already did, when they come in, then you can talk about what you can do in the class with the simulation they found online. Does that sound about right? Okay, that's excellent. We didn't talk about that, but it's really a great activity is having the students actually find resources relevant to the topic that you covered.
Like WebQuest?
Like WebQuest, or if you say, I want you to find me 3 videos that talk about this topic, and by the way, you can't use YouTube or Vimeo. So you can't use these 2 sources. Find me 3 videos that talk about this topic. There's a few things. 1, it forces students, this is this over here in the remembering and understanding, it forces students to actually go around and find the videos related to the topic. And 2, it also gives you resources for next semester. So if you're looking for additional resources you might incorporate in teaching. Excellent job. What time is it? Excellent job. Before I move on, let me see what time it is. Oh, we have time. It's 11:44. Man, I tell you, we're trying to skip out on this over here. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So, I focused on a particular lesson, particular topic, and I want the students to be able to determine the empirical and molecular formulas of a compound. So, the selected course content that I removed to the online environment was my PowerPoint lecture slides, study guide, and also an old exam key.
Okay, so help me understand the old exam key.
Well, the answers are provided. However, you have to figure out how did you get the answers. Right? So you need to know the steps of actually solving that problem. So it's like working backwards.
Sure.
But it only works if you make new exams.
Exactly.
Right.
For the class.
For the class, right.
Yeah, new exams. Right?
Exactly. Of course, it's right. But there's older exams that I've already used. So no one.
What level students?
This is general chemistry 1.
Okay, so the whole test is not about that one topic, right?
No.
Okay.
But that topic is included
in the test. Okay.
It's a portion of the test.
So they're watching your lectures, right? And reading the supplement,
Exactly, study guide.
and then they are textbook too?
Yes, well, not online.
No, but they have to read a textbook.
Right, yeah, they have to have a textbook.
Okay.
But this is what they'll be provided with online.
Sure, okay. And then, okay, so once they read your lecture notes, how are you going to assess whether they know your lecture notes?
Well, by section is going to actually be the outline. We talked about that.
Excellent. So,
Right.
empty outline for the lecture?
Also, quizzes and what I want them to do is to actually design a problem based on solving empirical performance.
You're here now. That's the only problem with that is as soon as you're asking folks to design online, you're talking about some upper level stuff, which is a lot to ask for general chemistry. But you can do it, especially if you're in the classroom.
Right.
So if you wanted them to design it, that would be the kind of thing I would say, now students in the classes break up into groups, you're going to design such as based on what you learned earlier, based on the lecture notes and the quiz I know you passed, and then you kind of want to do that there so you can kind of structure the conversation, especially because it's an upper level function and because they're general chem, that's usually freshman and sophomore, right? So that's the only thing I would suggest there. How long are your lectures?
50 minutes.
So you plan on putting a 50-minute lecture online for them to watch?
No.
Okay, so just the topic in particular. Okay. All right. Any questions or feedback or anything? I think we're all getting the hang of this, ma'am.
My assessment, my lesson deals with this particular topic to associate and identify characteristics of systematics of selected organisms, major phyla, and a variety of populations. So I just want my students that are coming in from the first part of biology to just know certain characteristics and the major phyla that make up the organisms for the 5 kingdoms. That's it.
Okay, were they supposed to know this before they get to your class?
Yes, they're supposed to know that before they get to my class.
So this is remedial stuff then, right?
Right, so my remedial stuff would go online.
Okay, so you're out of the lecture business, right?
Right, I'm out of the lecture. I've already started discussing my first group of organisms, which are unicellular. So my narrow organisms. I've already started talking about certain characteristics, and then everybody looks puzzled.
Right.
Because they've forgotten the characteristics of unicellular organisms.
How could they forget that?
Right. So I would allow, I would tell them to go online for the remediation, just like you suggested.
Okay.
And so what I would have online would be, we have so many resources that come with our textbooks.
Yes.
So I wanted to utilize just certain videos that deal with classification and systematics. I'm dealing with the classification system and taxonomy. And I would let them read that information. Well, watch the videos. The videos are short. It may be about 3 videos that are 5 or 6 minutes that discuss each of the particular kingdoms and their particular characteristics. And I think the best way to assess that would be a pre-test and a post-test. Multiple choice, about 10 questions, because it's real simple, about the particular organisms' characteristics that they all have because they're grouped into those kingdoms.
Okay.
And then when they would come back to class, I know that's after lunch, what I would do is I would pick up from maybe having a quiz and then 1 or 2 questions that they saw on the pre-test just as well as the post-test, because I do like that idea where if they reach 100 on the pre-test, there's no sense in them taking the post-test because we know they've mastered that particular subject. They already know, they're knowledgeable.
Sure. The problem with that is you're talking about a very specific small topic, right?
Right.
So, and it's only 10 questions.
Right.
Theoretically, I could get 100 on a test that's 10 questions on any topic if you gave me a half hour.
Okay.
Right. So you can't really do a pre and post test with that. Now, if you were talking about on all of biology 1 or half of biology 1, sure, then I would say the pre-test, you can identify specifically what they don't need, then you take those modules. Then they can take the remediation stuff. But if you're thinking about, I think keep the pre-test,
okay,
keep the post-test, but require everybody to go through it anyway.
Okay.
At the very least, especially, you'll be able to see how students move between the pre and post tests to determine what you want to do next semester. But I think that's a good place to start. Instead of 10, I go to 15 and I randomize them.
Okay. So instead of me doing just one of the particular kingdoms, just go ahead and maybe include them all.
Well, how many are we talking about?
5.
You're saying 5, but there are 5 basic.
Just 5 basic kingdoms. That have lots of organisms.
How many organisms? Okay, but I'm sorry.
But I just want general characteristics of those organisms and classify them in those.
How many characteristics are we talking about?
I could have them learn about 5 or 6.
Oh, well, yeah. That's fine. I think that's great.
Okay.
Question.
This is a question. A lot of us are talking about doing the pre-work, and I was wondering, can our state or can we as faculty give work before the first day of class? I know some universities do, and some high schools do, local, but can we actually have work prior to the first day of class?
I don't know about you folks. Yeah, you have to answer that. I'll tell you what Howard is after everybody's done.
That's a good question. I know we have a student get into PT school, but she just had her orientation. At her orientation, the gross anatomy instructor gave her a thick sheet of things that you need to know when you get back to school. So, and she shared that with me. So,
The only problem I see in that is students register late, students come in late. Even if they register, they still come back a week or two later. Financial aid situation, all that kind of stuff. So it's just but it's not a faculty problem, but if it's part of the grade assessment at the end of the semester, you're gonna have to account for that. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I have seen folks kind of skate that question by having requirements before you get into class. So, yeah, before you're able to actually sit in this, one of the prerequisites is to take this test online. Yeah, so that's kind of how our math department does. Yeah, welcome to Howard. Yeah, Algebra 1. But before you can actually go to Algebra 1, you have to sit and take this test first. And it's basically the pre-test to let folks know where they're at and so they can be advised to go in different levels. So I've seen that. But as far as actually, I've seen folks also deliver content. You can say, hey, this course is available a week and a half early. Such. But the difficulty is if the course is more, I think at Howard, general counsel thinks about it more as a contract with terms contained there within. So you can't require things beyond the scope of the contract that are associated with the grade in there. But you can require prerequisites. So that's how they kind of skate. I'm not sure how you folks want to. It depends on the kind of stranglehold you have over your faculty and students. If it's, yeah, you got the gotcha yoke.
I have a question. Sure. This is related to her work. You mentioned raising the her test question from 10, or the pre-test from 10 to 15. What would that do?
Require
15.
It would take 10 is generally too few questions, right? 15 it didn't seem like a lot more, but in the scale of 10, it's up a significant amount. 20 I think is right at the limit of being too much for a mastery quiz. Okay. So I usually say 15 is pretty good. Yeah.
And you skipped somebody over here.
Did I? Oh, ooh, that was dirty. No, that was so dirty right there. Oh my goodness. Wow. She's like, I thought we were friends, dude. Why you say that? Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean to skip you. I'm sorry. I did not mean to skip you. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. So my course is Anatomy and Physiology 1. So my objective is to, at the end of the course, I want the students to be able to describe how the body is organized using appropriate anatomical terminology. So that's something pretty much they have to know for Anatomy 1 as well as Anatomy 2. So that's something that, I want them to kind of master. So I guess for the online content, I would, maybe give them a vocabulary list as well as pictures showing how the different terms kind of correspond to different parts of the body. So they would have these pictures that they would have to review online. And I guess the assessment, would be just giving them diagrams that they would have to label using the appropriate terms.
Okay, so you're giving them, showing, I guess, the human body or different parts of it, giving them the name. The assessment is, here's the picture, identify what part it is. How do you do that in Desire to Learn? Or how would you actually do the assessment itself?
Well, you can upload pictures, so you just give them pictures that are, black pictures with just lines on there, and then ask them, maybe multiple choice or just, tell them to list the parts, A, B, C, D, E.
How many vocabulary words?
It's a lot.
So in this particular lesson, you're talking about moving over, correct?
Yeah.
How many words would you say are in that lesson?
It's probably more than 20 words, 20, 30 words.
Oh, yeah, that's not 20 words. That's okay. You said I think it's like 100. 100. That's a lot. Okay, 20. They're good with 20. All right. I mean, 20 words. You can do. You can also do function with 20 words. You can do identify where it's at.
As well. We start with just learning the terms, being familiar with the terms.
You can combine that. 20 words. You can learn. You can learn location, definition, and function in one online. So they can do that. And if you don't have it, so you're giving them the word. One of the online activities is the pictures word where it's located. The second would be the word and the function. And then the quiz is now you have to know both. You have to identify where, what's this word, what's the function. I think that's fine. I mean, 20 a week. That's not bad. Right. 2 folks left. Any comments about that? 2, 3. Did I get you?
Oh, you ready?
I'll come back to you because you said they've been skating over here. I'll come back. All right, go ahead.
All right. This is for gender roles, sociology class. I want them to be able to, the objective is to apply their sociological imaginations to the origin and consequences of gender socialization. And I thought that a good way to do that would be like to have them do an outside of class activity, like go to the toy store and see how it's segregated, to see the different gender-specific types of toys.
Sure.
And the consequences that has for their socialization, and then go online and discuss it, maybe post some notes or talk about it. It'd be great if they could do a video while they're there, but I don't know if everyone has that.
Let's yeah, I like that activity. Let's jump back a level though. So.
More application, I guess.
Yeah, you're a higher order thing. Okay, so let's talk about the content specifically.
Okay.
So in regards to general, what is it that you're going to put online for the students to look at or read or digest?
Articles and I have an article about the sociological imagination, so I probably have them read that.
Okay.
And then apply that to gender.
I can't. It's too quick to apply. So first you have to assess whether or not they understood the information in the article. And this
I would do that. This would be in a later class. It wouldn't be like the first couple of classes. This would be toward the end of the semester, maybe.
Well, no. You want to jump in this. If you're going to make it a hybrid, you want to start right away. Just to let folks know that. If you think about making it a hybrid course, you want to set the expectation right away. Usually not the first class, but the first class you explain, okay, so you also have some online work that is representative of this class and such and such. Okay, so you have an article they want them to read. This is the first level? Second level course? Okay, so then you post the article. How are you going to assess whether or not they read the article?
They will discuss it in class.
Online. How are you going to be able to assess that?
They will post a response online.
Okay, so they're going to do an
Just like 150 words, 200 words.
So like a discussion board assignment then.
Yeah.
So you're going to create a discussion board assignment that they're going to respond to. Do you want to respond to other folks as well?
I haven't, but I'm going to incorporate that this fall.
Okay. How many? It's a lot of reading. Just to let you know, it's a lot of reading to.
I mean, they're short articles.
Not them. You.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
That's true.
So if you just want them to pull factual information out of the articles, with the idea being that when they come into class, then you can start talking about different things they can do to move to some of the higher order thinking, then you can ask questions just on factual information out of the article. An incomplete outline is probably a little bit better for articles. Okay. Because then you can actually demonstrate to the student how to pull out factual information from the article and put it in a format that they can then use be useful.
Okay.
In addition to the article, what else are you going to put online?
Throughout the semester?
No, just for this one.
Just the article.
One article?
For this one particular. Well, and then throughout the semester, they're going to do they're each responsible for 10 posts. So they have to I'll have a video or something or an article or vary it up, and then they have to respond to it. It could be a thought question. They have to respond to it, and then they have to respond to someone else's.
Okay. I think they need more to read than the article.
Okay. I mean, their textbook. But that's not online.
Okay, that's true. So you're going to assign a textbook reading as well?
Yeah, always.
Okay, so do you also want to assign assessment for the test book to make sure that they read that? So you're doing the incomplete outline, or you're doing the discussion board questions, or whatever you want to do for the article. In regards to the textbook, you want to make sure you ask some type of assessment to make sure they read the textbook.
Yeah, right.
And then if you're looking for something else to do online, because you're gonna be doing this a lot, it sounds like articles. So you can also do things like you can have them identify a resource online. Now go find some examples of this such and such we talked about and post those in the discussion board questions, so you can kind of vary the question up so it's not all self-reflecting.
Yeah.
And things like that. So. Any questions or comments? Yeah, I don't think I emphasize that enough. Even though the textbook is not online, you still need to assess online that the students read the textbook before they come to class. Not that students don't read textbooks, I know they all do, but sometimes they need a little bit of help. So.
Okay. I think what I'll try to do is, taking the objective or the outcome that I gave you initially, to review and analyze client data, stratify to formulate a plan of action and conduct a physical assessment. So prior to those students having done that in class, I will put something online like an algorithm that shows your risk classification for exercise or cardiovascular risk assessment. And I would put a case study there with a quiz, and they would have to answer the questions based upon the case study. They would have to complete a form that's a PARQ, a physical activity questionnaire on themselves.
Okay.
And a pre-participation health assessment on themselves. And then once they've done this, get this certificate of completion to bring into class from the case study before we go on to do whatever we're going to do in class on that.
Where did the students learn the information they need to learn in order to take information from the case study?
From the algorithm.
Algorithm.
That's what, it can be introduced there. I don't want to teach a whole class.
Well, no. Okay. So the students get to you. Do they have a common vocabulary they know already?
Yes.
Okay. So they have vocabulary.
Parts of got to that point. Yes.
Okay. So is there a textbook associated with this too? Okay. So there's readings in the textbook related to the case study or related to information you're pulling out of the case study.
Several books.
And then there are several books. Okay. And then so you have to assess. You're going to have to assess that to make sure the students actually read. That's usually a quick quiz or something like that. And then they're going to have a case study. And then within the case study, they're going to fill out a form that requires them to pull specific information out of the case study.
Let me see if I can clarify. It's like a 21-year-old female that smokes so many cigarettes a day.
Sure.
That has an LDL of this, or so forth and so on. So I'm giving you all of these particular information about this particular client, and then you have to stratify their risk for exercise. For example, if this is a diabetes, and she's a diabetic, well, then we know that she's high risk.
Let me say, so how do the students know a diabetic is high risk?
From the algorithm.
Okay, so now you can explain what algorithm. What you mean by algorithm?
So I have an algorithm that says, if you have this, if you have this, if you have greater than 2 risk factors, you're low. If you have equal to or greater than high of these particular risk factors, then you're moderate. Then if you have this, then you're high.
Do they need to understand why that's the case?
Well, if they did right in Dr. Williams' class, I'm just joking. Yes. And that's more physiology. Or nutrition.
Okay.
If your LDLs are high, you should have learned that or gotten that somewhere else. Even though if I go initially, I'm going to give you some type of knowledge assessment.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So the algorithm you're talking about, it may be beneficial to actually provide that for them online.
Yeah, I'm going to provide that.
And then provide a quiz about that. Just no, not even how to use it. Just such and such. That way they have a clear understanding of what the algorithm is. So then later on when you ask them to apply it to different case studies, they can understand why. And you're probably going to have to demonstrate that because that's a higher order function. You may have to demonstrate that before you require them to do it online. Now, because otherwise they'll just go column here, high, column here, high, but they won't understand why or how that's related. Or if you have a patient who says, well, I can only change one thing, what should I change to help me exercise? The student basically have to go through every single permutation if they don't have any concept of how the algorithm works. They're able to say, you know what, if you stop smoking for 3 months, you can really start exercising more than you can, as opposed to they'll have some kind of understanding of how it works in order to help, especially help a case or a person understand what they need to do to change. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. Everybody understand that? Okay. All right. Any feedback for? We have one more person in this lunch. Can everybody calm down? No, it's all right. It's gonna be okay. All right. All right. We have one more person.
But basically the class is online already.
Oh, okay.
And we have the pre-test, the post-test.
What class is it?
Biology 111.
Okay.
It's an introduction for non-majors. We have the pre-test, the post-test. We have small 5-minute videos that can assess the students. Also, we have study guide / learning outcome series of questions that the students need to complete. And the questions are reflective of the quiz and the exam. Meaning that the questions that will appear on the study guide / learning outcome will also appear in the exam in some capacity. And that's the primary means of assessment for the class.
What activities do you have for topics?
For example, we was talking about the cell. You may have a small video on the cell membrane that explains the basic function. If it's the nucleus, a small video explaining the basic function of the nucleus.
Okay. Are your only assessments, do you have any formative assessments, or are they all kind of, look at this content, now we test you, this is your grade, move forward? Or do you have any, assessing to learn?
Yeah, we have a pre and a post quiz that you can take over and over and over. And depending on the chapter, the quiz may consist of 15 to 25 questions, depending on the chapter. But we also have a database of exam questions that we use for the actual exam.
Okay.
And sometimes, depending on how I'm feeling, they may get, depending on that, they may get 2 attempts at the quiz, 2 attempts at the actual exam.
Okay.
And the questions are taken from a database.
Sure.
But one of the problems is that the database is limited in questions. So, we're kind of real guarded about that.
Okay. All right. Well, because it's an online class, there's a whole nother set of questions that I have. That's a whole nother workshop. So.
But that's the boss right there.
So but we also do a distance learning seminar in particular about best practices in doing distance learning. But I'm not gonna cover that. I just was curious about that. So there's no face-to-face whatsoever.
No.
What do you do about testing? Like, how do you know do you have a testing center? How do you know the person is taking the test is the test?
Well, based on the results, they can't be cheating. That's how I know. That's how I know.
Okay. You know what? All right. So like I said, that's a whole nother. That's funny. All right. So that basically. Okay. So a quick recap. So we talked about. Flipping the classroom, we talked about taking content you do in class, move to the online environment. We talked about learning outcomes, identify which ones better move to an online environment. Moving into an online environment as well as identify assessments that you need to make sure the student actually do it. If you assign readings in a book, you need to put a quiz online to make sure the students read the book. Right? And a lot of times what faculty members will find, is the students don't really need to read the book. You think they do, like you read these 50 pages, but you actually talk about what's important in those 50 pages. So then why are you requiring students to read the 50 pages? If you don't put a quiz, students won't read it. Well, of course, some students will, but just in general, don't put a quiz, students won't read it. If that's okay, then you ask yourself why you're assigning it in the first place. That's another way to think about it. So, all right, we did that. We went through this form. We're gonna eat lunch, come back for lunch, and now we're gonna talk about, well, Carl, now that I moved what I would normally do in the class, lecturing to an online environment, what can I do in the class now with these students? What kind of active learning environments can I do with these students? You feel like you have something to say, ma'am.
I also want to tell you that Dr. Johnson was supposed to get back to you with the alternate WIMBA. It's called Blackboard Collaborative.
Oh, yeah, I know about Collaborate.
Blackboard Collaborative. And apparently, we are going to be losing WIMBA, and we will be using this Blackboard Collaborative.
Wait, so you're going to use...
That's 4 things since in 3 years.
Wait, so you're going to... All right, so you're going to be using Blackboard Collaborate to do synchronous communication.
Correct, yes.
Right. So, well, one, I don't see how those are going to integrate. I don't see how Blackboard Collaborate is going to integrate into this Design to Learn. That's going to be 2 separate systems. However, you can still do one authentication. So you can still have one authentication system. Same way you have the banner Desire to Learn education system, but you're not going to be able to like load Desire to Learn and have a. Well, I guess you can make links. Anyway, if you want to know how to integrate it, I guess you can send me an email. I'll show you how. But you still have a content capturing problem because well, it's not a problem. You don't have the ability because Blackboard Collaborate in particular is designed for synchronous communication. So it's designed that you and your students log in at the same time, which is, that's a useful tool. And of course, you can share your desktops and files and things like that. You can have breakout sessions online, video, audio, etc. But if you want to talk for 15, 20 minutes about a particular topic, I'm not sure that platform is the best way to do that, although I think you can jerry-rig it so it does do it. I know, right? All right. So that's it for lunch. I'm supposed to stop at 12. It's 12:13. I generally verbally articulate, what their problem was, how they approached the problem, how they solved it, and maybe some of the limitations or challenges they have in solving the problem. You usually want to at least be able to do that, because part of college is to be able to get up and explain what it is you believe and why. So that's something that's important. And that's actually something that's rather difficult to do in an online environment because you can't get that feedback, that immediate feedback, or see the verbal cues. All right. Anything else, Eric? All right, let's whoever's next, whoever's ready. Everybody's gonna go.
I'll do one.
All right.
I'm going to do like Dr. Williams. I'm not going to admit I was late. But we're following up with what we were doing in the classroom. So I was doing the cell and the organelles. I would break them up into groups, and they would have to find the analogous part of the city that would be like an cell organelle in different groups. So, some people might pick a park for chloroplasts or, just different things. So I won't tell them exactly, each group will have different things. They can pick different entities, government buildings, schools, whatever, but then they have to debrief and explain why and justify why they chose that as the representation for the organelle.
Okay, that sounds awesome. But then let me ask you some questions. So does it scale up like that? Does it scale up citywide? Okay. How will you present the components of the city to the students?
No, they have to have their own, they have to just identify those themselves as the group. They have to solve their own problems.
Okay, well, let's suppose I've never been here before, so I know where the hotel is.
A city's a city.
Oh, you mean a part of any city?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the part of just this. Okay.
Not necessarily Albany, but if they've used Albany, that'd be fine. But everybody's got a government building, everybody's got a hospital, everybody's got a trash disposal place, everybody's got a water purification plant.
So sounds good. So you give them the assignment. It's written what they have to do. They come together in their groups.
Then I would have poster paper and like group 1, poster paper here, poster paper. And then they would go ahead and tell the parts that were analogous on their poster paper. What I really like to do is then have them go to the next, like group 1 goes to group 2, reads what they say, and then put feedback at the bottom of the poster paper for the group, for the initial group.
How many students in the class?
Usually in my classes, I have about 20, 15, 20.
How long do you think it'd take the group to complete the poster?
It doesn't take them any time at all to do that.
Oh, okay.
They're all about summarizing right away. I mean, they'll go nucleus and put it in
Okay, so it takes, about how long would you say though?
10 minutes.
Okay, so after 10 minutes, everybody is done with the group activity.
Now, we might, I would say 15. Now, remember, my classes are a little longer.
Sure.
All right, so I'd say between 15, 20 minutes for them to work together as a group and come up with what they think are representations in the city. And then another 10 minutes to put it on the poster paper, and then going from group to group to group would take around 20 minutes, because as they go from one group to the next, they see that person, like the previous group's feedback, and they can't repeat the feedback. So they have to have new feedback. So you get lots of feedback from your project from the rest of the people in the class.
Did you cover this topic before you come to the...
Actually, they should have had it in biology 1, shouldn't they?
Oh. That's the question.
But they did, remember they did it on, so I'm counting on you guys to pull through and do this right.
But you had the remedial component, right? As I recall, yeah.
They remember they're online.
Right, the online was the remedial stuff, right? Okay.
And they have had the cell ad nauseum. They've
Sure.
had it in 5th grade, they've had it in 7th grade, they've had it, and then everybody does a cell model. And then they go,
Is that what it's called, a cell model? It's called a cell model?
No, that's not from
Okay.
I call it Cell City. Cell City.
Okay. So I like the idea, but it's not enough. What other, I guess,
Eventually they all debrief.
Sure.
Yeah.
What other, besides a city representing a cell, what other type of superstructures can represent a cell?
Actually, they could, if they were really good at this, they could do the human body and how the cell actually blows up into the human body.
All right, that's 2. What else? You need 2 more.
I need 2 more?
2 more. So y'all can help.
Companies, sure, companies.
Companies, oh.
Oh, governments.
So companies and governments. So those are the 4 you present, and those are the 4, each group works on them individually.
They could, sure.
Right. So then when you get...
Also, if they want to do their own thing, they can also, if they come up with a better idea, then they can use that too.
As a group? Oh, as they come up with a better than what you gave them.
So we don't want to do, we got city, we don't want to do city, we want to do such and such. Is that okay? Yeah?
Okay. So now they're all working on something individually. They're doing the poster board. They're explaining what the poster board is, poster boards are, or poster board is.
What the report on the poster board is.
Right. And so, brain think, okay, are you defining roles for each person to do?
I always have 4 and they all have roles.
Okay, so they have specific...
We should have, by this time, they should already know their roles, because that's what we do a lot.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, say that again?
In my classroom, I do a lot of that group stuff. So there are 4 roles. They have the person who organizes the materials there, the summarizer, whoever's the recorder, and stuff like that.
Okay.
Can't have the same role you had last time.
No, okay, I like that. Change it up. But the only thing, I like it actually. I like getting up and walking around the classroom. I like that poster board to give that kind of tactile element to it. I'm a little concerned about the feedback, the written feedback, because one, the way you explained it, if I get to the board late, I can't. There's less stuff to feedback on.
I do have in my class. I have what's called lifelines.
What's a lifeline?
A lifeline is if you can't add anything else, you write lifeline down, because that means you're done. There's nothing else that I know, so I might need to go back and look at somebody else's to get another idea. But you can always call lifeline if you don't know an answer. And then when you call lifeline, you have to call somebody else.
Ooh.
Oh, I know. But the good thing is you can only have 1 lifeline a week.
Okay.
Which if they take their lifeline on Monday, they better have all the answers on the next class.
Sure. I like it. I like it for in-class activity. I even kind of like it for an out-of-class activity, like an online group activity as well. I think it'll be appropriate there.
And when I do groups like that, I give 2 grades.
Okay.
You get an individual grade and you get a group grade.
So
they're not. They're actually sort of more even than. So it comes out to 50-50 again, whatever, but I like your idea of making it more important for the individual, right? I like that. Use that.
It depends. I mean, in that process where part of the structure of the assignment is that groups teach other members, like that's actually part of it. In which case you want to do a 50-50, that way they make sure they're actually teaching and not just learning. In yours, I'm not sure they're actually teaching, everybody's kind of adding in different parts, but I don't think they're actually having to instruct people how to scale up a cell.
Right, but some people will there'll always be that person in the group who is like Dr. Taha, that does everything. Or like when Vera Blake was here and she said, I always wanted to be with so-and-so because I knew that the work would get done.
Yeah. I mentioned something with mine that I've also done. For each group, I always give someone the lead role, and
Yes.
you're the person of contact
Director.
that I need to come talk to if there's a situation. So if that lead person tells me so-and-so is not working, then deduction comes out from that group grade for that particular individual. So that's how the assessment comes into that. Just
I
wanted
see,
to-
when I monitor groups, I used to, in younger grades, I would have a red, a green, and a yellow. I had footprints just because I don't know why. That's what we all seen punched out, so that's what I did. And so when I went around kind of like finding out what was going on in the group, if somebody wasn't working, they got a yellow foot. And then if I know. But I'm gonna tell you something, my chemistry kids also didn't, when I didn't put a happy face on somebody's paper, they came up and asked me why they didn't get their happy face. So if you got 2 yellows, then I took it up and you got a red, your points were deducted off your grade. If I picked up the paper because you started participating and got a green one, then the points were added back. That way I didn't have to talk to them.
Right. The idea is, even if because I don't know who's friends outside of the classroom, so if I pair them and they happen to be friends in a group, well, I've come to situations where the friend will actually tell on the friend, like, this is my group grade now.
Right.
You know, we're
Yeah,
friends.
they self-monitor.
Exactly. Right.
And they'll turn each other in a heartbeat.
tell you.
Nothing nice about
I'll tell you.
papers.
When it comes to grades, they don't play.
Something you also might want to consider in regards to being able to understand who knows what in a group. While they're presenting, you can ask questions of particular members of the group. So you normally get up there and you got the person not making eye contact, looking around. You should say, like, I reserve the right to ask any member of the group any questions in the presentation. So, some people are going to roll those dice and see what happens, but most folks want to be prepared before they stand up there. So that's something that you can do to kind of make sure folks are on task.
We do presentations, they get 2 grades off of that too. That's why I end up with lots of grades, Dr. Minster, just if you ever wonder. They'll get a presentation grade from me, then I'll take the average of the class. They'll do a presentation, like I have a rubric and they grade each other's presentation. And then I take that average of the classes in the second presentation grade. No?
Why do that?
Because these are, eventually, remember, these are going to be teachers.
Okay, so part of it is being able to teach what it is they're doing.
That's my job, to make sure that when they go out, they can explain the content in a way that's understandable to other people.
So if that's something that's important, then I would make that one of the defined roles. So what are the defined roles is you're teaching it, because you teach by yourself, so you're teaching it this time. Mm-hmm. And throughout this, because now you're doing a flipped classroom, you'll have a lot more of these situations. Oh, yeah. So everybody gets to be the teacher in the presentation. So how you perform as a teacher, that's a grade. What your group does as a group together, that's a grade.
How you plan is also
How you
plan is your part of the group.
Well, I'm sorry, I was including that as group grade. So I was including 2 grades. One, the presentation is not a group. The presentation is individual. And then your group grade is how the group planned what it is they're going to do. That way it gets you out of the 100 grade businesses. You're only doing 2. You still have the opportunity to assess who's doing what, because you can always, after he or she is done talking, you can ask each group member what it is. And when you ask the members specific questions, you're not doing it to get points. You can only lose points at this point. You know, when I'm asking you a question, all you can do is just come down from the group grade. So there's no going up. So I
That makes sense.
do it like that. Something you have to consider is, okay, so now that I'm doing a hybrid, I have a lot more of these type of active learning environments, so it has to make up more of the grade, right? So as you start getting into these 2 grades per person every day, you're on it. Like you're either excelling or desire to learning like on your spreadsheet, try to make it happen. So bring your notebook computer to class, save you a whole lot of time.
Let me ask you a question. When the peers, the students evaluate, their peers for the presentation, when you assess those grades, are they precise?
What does that mean
Are
precisely?
they based on their presentation? Assume a
You
student.
mean, does somebody give everybody all 5s?
Correct.
Because the very first person that does the presentation, we aside from going over the rubric, we do the first presentation together to make sure that everybody's seeing the same kind, that they understand that when they see this, it is equal to this. And if you get all 5s, then there is definitely a problem.
Okay, so have you explained, does the class know what a 5 looks like? Like what a 4 looks like, a 3 looks like, a 2 looks like?
And then when we model that first one, that reinforces it. Like I can describe it to them all day long, but until they see it in action and then we do it together. And usually that first person ends up with grades that aren't quite as nice. So they get, I throw in a couple of bonus points on that kid. And then they always want to go first next time.
So that first presentation explains from 5 through 1?
Models.
Models.
5 through 1,
Okay.
yes. Because we start with 3, start in the middle, and then say, okay, did they do this? If they didn't do this, then we go back 1. If they did that, then we go up 1 to determine whether they deserve an up point or not. Otherwise, they stay in
Have
the.
you ever come to a situation where
What, you don't like that?
someone that was to get a 3 got a 5 or got a 1? Have you ever experienced that situation?
You mean?
Like when you assessed?
Sure. Generally, it averages out pretty much.
Okay.
Because I take their second
average.
grade is the average of every kid who's in there.
Okay, so I would say first, some things you may want to consider. If they're doing group projects not group projects actually, they're basically in-class group activities, right? So if they're doing those, I don't think there's necessarily the need to assess, and especially assign a grade to every single class period, because they're meeting okay.
No, you just said this one.
Right, for this.
Cell City, that's what we do.
Okay, no, what I'm saying is like, you said you had a kind of an assessment built in where they assess each other in the group?
Oh, no.
No, that's something different.
When they do their presentation, the presentation gets assessed by me and by the people in the class.
Oh, okay. Why do the people in the class assess it?
Because they're trying to determine what's strong about their teaching strengths and what's not strong about their teaching strengths.
You don't have to have them assessing to do that. You can just give feedback. Because they're not experts yet. You're the expert. You're the expert. So the idea of them assessing somebody when they're not even proficient in doing it themselves, there's no need for that. Plus, it gets you all out grades. No, you can grade it. You can watch them, you can grade, you can ask questions, you can decide, you can define the group grade based on how it's built. You don't have to leave that to the students. But you do need to require the students to give feedback. See, but you can just, right, but you can monitor that. You can call them, what do you folks think about that? That kind of thing you can.
After each person's presentation.
Right, so you can go around the class, but you don't have to have, that's too much paper, it's too much work. You can assess it just fine.
They love to give each other.
Yeah, I'm sure they do, yeah.
And they're way meaner than I am.
Exactly. So, and you have to worry about that. So now my grade is adversely affected by this person who's not an expert grading me on what I did.
Actually, I've been lucky, I haven't had that happen yet. The feedback they give to each other, is generally, the first one's not as rich as when we go on through the semester.
Sure.
It's richer and richer.
Sure. I like the feedback. Just something to consider.
I like it.
All right, sure. All right, any other comments or no? All right, we're keeping it moving. Everybody's going. Everybody's going.
Well, mine's pretty simple. So I had the anatomy and physiology one, where they were learning the anatomical terminology. So So I thought a good in-class activity would be to do the visible quiz, where I could put the pictures up, and then I could kind of poll the students to see, you know, which areas they're still kind of weak on, which terms, you know, everybody kind of knows those ones. Another activity that I was thinking of was to do maybe case studies where they would get like a specific case, like each group would get a specific case, kind of describing a part of the body, and they would have to determine what part of the body it's talking about. So they use those specific terms that they had to learn, and they have to figure out, you know, what specific part of the body the problem is.
Okay. All right. Those all sound good. So you're going to, in your first one, you're going to show them a picture of a.
Yeah, so the same pictures that they would have online.
Sure.
With the you know, pointing to different parts of the body, you know, the terms. Then we kind of use that in class. And that same software you were talking about, the poll everywhere.
Sure.
Where, you know, I could kind of poll and see if they actually know the terms. So I guess that would, everyone would be answering. So I could say, okay, 70% of the class knows the terms, or, you know, if only 10% of them get it right, then I would figure that, you know, they're not really getting it or understanding it.
Okay. Well, so in regards to that one, is there reason to believe that after the mastery quiz they're taking on that exact same thing, they wouldn't be able to come into class and do it? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, one of the things is when you put stuff online, they'll refer back to the text.
Sure.
But when you ask them in class, okay, what does this term mean? What part of the body is it referring to? And everybody's kind of like looking at you like.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you can kind of get an idea if they're just kind of depending on the text, or if they're really, you know, remembering what they're supposed to remember.
Okay, that sounds good. And your other activity? Because
so that's what the case study is.
So the case study is, the case says describing a.
Or not necessarily a case study, just kind of a problem where it's describing. So, you know, you'd say, okay, this patient has a pain in this specific part of the body, and we use those terms to describe what part of the body is talking about. So they would have to figure out, you know, what the specific part of the body based on the terms. So just kind of an activity to see if they understand what the terms mean.
Okay, they're both good activities. Another one I might suggest is perhaps, did you want to do groups or no groups?
Groups, because the classes are usually.
So you want to do groups then?
Yeah.
Okay, so another good group work for this level, because you're talking basic, by basic I mean they're supposed to word definition, is you can require the group to take these 6 words and write a definition for them that a kindergartner would understand. Right? So then they have to take the information they learned and they have to kind of rewrite it and restructure it. That kindergarten say, and then when they present that, it's kind of funny because now you're making, okay, now talk like we're kindergartners. They kind of have to talk about it. They get engaged with it, but at the same time, they're taking the complex knowledge that you taught them and having to process it in a way where they can explain it simply. Yeah. So that might be another something else you might want to think about too. Yeah. So, anybody else have any feedback? Where are you getting the images from? The images of the body parts. Where are you getting them from?
I get most of the pictures I use from the textbook, what I get from the textbook. So from the publishers, they give you the images that are in the text. Okay. So I use a lot of those that we get. Some of them I get online.
Can you bring in body parts to the classroom? Because the reason why I ask you, it's one thing to talk about a spleen. It's another thing to say, okay, I'm not going to say what this is. Now you hold it in your hand and you try to figure out what it is and explain why you think what it is. And even if they get it wrong, at the very least, they're going in, identifying a term, the definition of the term, and then the process. So even if they get the organ wrong, at least they're still, having to think about what it might be.
Well, that's a good lab activity because we have the labs that goes
on. Oh, okay.
So that could be a good lab activity.
Is it easy to get body parts here in Albany State?
Yeah, we have the torsos.
All right. I sound silly, but you never know. It's hard to get your hands on a good lung sometimes, right? Wait, no, you can't get real ones.
Dr. Merchant, you can, because Phoebe has body parts.
Yeah, I'm talking about real ones. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, like humans.
Humans, right? Well, animal, either
And
one.
they actually have people come out to your class. I had Dr. Villeville come out to my class, and he brought brain sliced up like bologna, and a real brain, and several other female parts, and the lungs that were still attached. He brought a whole bunch of stuff. It was really neat. He brought a female heart and a male heart. The female had a heart attack, and she survived, and he showed the students how they knew that, and it was really cool.
Yeah, if you can get your hands on some actual organs, you'd be surprised how far. You'll never forget the name of the arteries if you can like put your fingers in them.
Oh yeah, the kids will never forget what a brain bologna looks like.
So it's just something I could, because you're biology, and I know those types of things are available to you. Right. I mean, you don't want to Craigslist something like that. You probably want to go to the real channels. So. Right, and like I know, right, and like I said, it's
Disgusting. He showed them how it all went together and how the tissue looked when it was sliced.
sure.
He was very nice. I was very bad.
Something to consider. You always want to give somebody the option to opt out of something like that. It may be too much for somebody to have to do that. So they should have the ability to opt out, and if somebody opts out, you can usually make them write something else about it, and then you'd be surprised if people really don't want to opt out of it. So you can opt out. Just write a quick 250, 400 page. Be like, you know what? Give me. So it's just an idea. A lot of folks don't think about that. It's you're at a university, so you have like resources here that you can't find most places. So, anybody else? I'm sorry. Any other feedback? And that's usually a once a semester thing with the body parts and stuff like that.
Yes, well, again, this is for biology 1111 for the non-majors. I'm talking about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Two things they have the hardest time with is to have the equation on the board, but instead of putting the actual carbon dioxide and glucose and whatnot, put A, B, C, and D. And then they'll break up in their groups and they'll tell you, okay, not only what A is, but where in the cell does this process take place? Is it reduction? Is it oxidation? Is it the light reaction? Is it the dark reaction? Things like that.
Okay. So you're giving them the problems they have to solve then in regards to the cell?
Right. I mean, I would have, group
For
number one, they would have A. Tell me what A is and tell me everything you know about A. For group number two, they'll look at the B part and so forth and so on. So, that's one thing. Another thing is very similar to what you did, but since we're dealing with equations, we don't have, abstract things, but you have these little model kits that you can buy and create an oxygen molecule. And then perhaps create that oxygen molecule and say, okay, there are two oxygen molecules here, where in the equation does that fit? And then put these models in that order that they're supposed to go. And then again, with those models, then explain, okay, you're going from water to oxygen, that's oxidation. Where in the plant does that take place? The thylakoid membrane, okay? So forth and so on.
That's pretty good. I like that idea. Something else you can also do with it because you're making 3D models is once the group makes the models based on what you talked about and you have that. So now you have a bunch of these models and you can have one member from the group hold their model up and say, okay, now let's talk about this part. What order do you get in? And then they have to reshuffle and explain. You can have them explain through what it is they have to do. Okay, what about this? So they have to reshuffle again, or now you sit down because you're done. Type that they can explain again so they kind of can see that. That's another exercise me to do. Something like that you'll have to facilitate more so. Once they're out of their groups, the feedback is done. You have another 10, 15 minutes, you can say, okay, let's talk about it like this, and just line them up and move around. So that's something that might be interesting as well. Also, if you ever think about taking them outside, or is there a way to actually demonstrate photosynthesis quickly to somebody, or I don't know how.
Just go into the greenhouse problem.
Oh.
And then there's, in fact, I was looking online, I closed my laptop. I was looking at Amazon.com about what's called a light meter.
Ooh, what's a light meter?
And it determines, the amount of light that's hitting the plant.
Oh.
And then I also have the refractometer, without going into the rigmarole what that is. But, looking at the light spectrum, why is it that plants can receive green light, the green spectrum, and not the red or the orange or whatnot? So,
Okay. All Very good. All right, you can also experiment with that to say like, this group, you have this plant, no green light, you have blue. What are the effects you can see? What are the effects you anticipate seeing based on this, on the calculation that I gave you? I'm assuming, I don't know if you can do it at that level, but maybe not. I don't know, that's just an idea.
Yeah, well, something to help them understand, help them visualize, because seeing all the calculations, okay, this takes place in this part of the cell, it's not clicking, so
Sure.
show them.
3D models and then have them move around and rotate after you talk about it, I think that's exactly what you're looking for. Excellent. Anybody else? All right, keep it moving, keep it moving. Yep.
I mean, just overall for the course, I thought because I have trouble getting them to read, period.
Okay.
So I thought maybe if I divided each chapter up, 2 students to each chapter, they teach the class the important points, and then also make a quiz for the class to assess what the important parts were.
Sure.
Maybe we could grade in class.
A little high schoolish, a little high schoolish. No, I can definitely see where.
What about the peer teaching part?
That's what I said. I could definitely see where you give them a research article.
Okay.
And then they take apart the research article and identify specific information you want them to identify.
That's not the topic.
Right, and they can do this in class, and then they present that information.
Okay.
Sure. As far as making the quiz questions.
But I have to assess that, or just assess their ability to teach it.
Yeah, well, you definitely want to have some type of formative assessment, or you want to have something in your syllabus that you can call it class participation. The kind of thing where you're going to have to actually do this.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, then
I
you
want to take it seriously.
right. I don't think you have to do the kind of peer stuff that some of the other folks were doing. That might not be necessary.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one thing you can do, right? What else are you thinking about in class?
Well, going back to the example that I gave earlier about the toy store visit, just having them go out and do things like that, apply their knowledge, and then come back and talk to the class about it.
Okay, that's excellent. That's an excellent suggestion as well. Other type of experiential activities that I've seen related to topics like that is you can have somebody violate norms, gender role norms, have somebody walk around and have other folks note their reactions from other folks, other people walking around who observe them.
True. Sometimes I have them do that outside of class and then talk about it in the class.
Yeah, I was talking about,
Or have somebody come in and violate a norm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can have somebody unannounced come in and violate the norm.
Right.
I generally recommend not having them do it outside the class.
Okay.
Because sometimes people take great offense when norms are violated, and then you're talking about maybe putting one of your students in danger. I've read it more so than seen it anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's nothing to take the class outside and have them kind of scatter, have somebody break norms and everybody observe what they see, or walk through the student center, stuff like that, and then come back and process it. Sure.
Okay.
And if you don't want to use a student to violate the norm, you can just, take one of these folks here with you.
Okay.
And have them walk
I
through.
also thought about having them go to the movie theater or something like that, where you think of traditional dating and stuff like that, and have people just observe male, female gender roles, who holds the door open for who, dating, all that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Just different activities like that.
I think it's great. If you're looking for online activities, you can talk about how they change through time. You give them specific time periods and have them. Right. Okay. I think that's great. Be careful about violating the rules and having students walk around.
Okay.
Just.
I guess I really think about the safety issue as much as I should.
Yeah. Probably. Because it can go terribly. Some people take great offense when rooms are violated. It depends where you live, and I don't know much about the town here. I'm not gonna make any stereotypes.
Right.
DC is kind of, you see it everywhere, so it's not.
You're right.
Yeah. Just something to think about.
Where we are.
All right. We have one more. You went? Did you win?
But actually, I don't really have a particular idea at the moment.
All right.
But we thinking about Osmosis Jones. You know Osmosis Jones? Yeah. It was factual. It was a cartoon, and the events that took place was very factual. But I don't really have an idea about what else we do in class.
All right. Well, so tell us about the online learning activity first. Just remind us what it was.
The online,
Yeah, remind us about the activities you're gonna have your students do online.
oh, these are the activities that we do online in terms of the videos and the animated presentations. That's just part of the normal lecture.
Okay, so then now you have them in the classroom.
Right.
What do you want to do with them?
Yeah, that's what I'm stuck at.
Okay,
So I was thinking about the role play, but for some reason I keep coming back to Osmose and Jones.
what level are the students?
Oh, biology for non-majors.
First, second level?
Said part 1, level 1.
So what topic are you doing then?
Let's say we had a cell. We were talking about the cell.
Another cell.
Oh, we could be talking about the body systems, the different systems.
Okay. Somebody else? Let me go around the room before I just say what I'm thinking. He's looking for in-class activities that are active student learning. The student has covered all the information on the cells he need to cover. That now is sitting in class. How can he reinforce those concepts that he went over online in class? What are some suggestions?
Well,
Cell something? You said cell?
yeah, we're talking about the parts of the cell.
You remember our colleague was talking about the speed dating and the function. You get the name and they have to go through the room and speed date and find the person with their matching function or whatever in the cell.
Did I miss that?
That was a couple workshops.
Oh, okay. That is awesome. Like, yeah. How many students? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The small class, and but you can have 2 people being the membranes. If they got a speed date to find another person who, whatever the membrane does, they have to.
And who idea was that? I was talking to Ms. Jones.
The one sitting there.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's all about speed dating.
That's actually. How big is the class?
Anywhere from 25 to 30.
You have equipment, like a microscopes and things like that.
Yeah.
Hey, you can show them stuff. You have them come, okay, scratch your hair. You take a sample, then you put it in a microscope. Or you can identify other parts, swabs inside of somebody's mouth. Be careful. You swab the inside of somebody's mouth and start identifying cells. That actually happened to me in biology, and it was hilarious. So there are certain cells that, I'll just stop there, but it was funny. So you can also do that. Swab, they can swab each other. Look at the microscope. What do you see? Have you identified the cell? What parts of the cell do you see? Talk about them, point about them. You can do different things like that.
One time, I know you can swap cell phones. These are the nastiest things in the world. But you can get, we're not talking about germs now. Whoops.
I think I got it. I just said.
So, I mean, does that work? You can also build models. You come in and like open up a big thing of Tupperware and said, okay, let's go ahead and build. Your group is going to build a model of a cell, and then when you're done building, you're going to sit in front of the class and explain what it is. It's great for small group stuff too.
Okay.
And you don't have to get really. You can just basically bring in like an adhesive, and something, some type of adhesive, and then whatever you find around the house, and bring it in and say, okay, let's see what you can do. Anybody else? The scale up that the professor was talking about seems pretty good, where you kind of talk about the cell and other aspects. So what parts of a city represent a cell. I thought that was a very interesting group activity. So, all right. Anybody else? Is that pretty much it? All right. And you went. You're the last player. I think everybody went, except for you. You went.
I'm not in that.
Everybody goes.
I just did the functions and parts of the graphic calculator for day one, so I wouldn't have to lecture this is on 1, this is on 2, these keys are in here, and this is this. And so in class to reinforce that, I'm still at the independent problem solving because you need to develop these skills by yourself, and you need to bond with your calculator, your machine, so you'll know how it works. So I like independent problem solving in class, but I'm available to help when you're not getting the right answer.
Sure. Do you think you need to put them in groups? Should it be? I guess you're going to have to learn how to do it individually.
Right, and they do, and I'm all for I'm okay with that, and they talk, but it's not a group thing that they communicate with.
Yeah, maybe you can make a competition. Yeah, all the same level, all same location, generally all from this area. I'm trying to think about different ways to kind of split the class or split the group up so they can compete each other without like being men versus women and.
Right, and it was only like 2 guys in the last one, so.
Oh.
Teacher again.
Okay.
Teacher nominated.
You can definitely kind of make it like almost like a game. You have you 4 people. Here's your equation. Let's see how quick you can solve it in your calculator. The first person says done. Second person says done. Take the top 2 people. Let's say now, first person go to the board and explain what you did specifically on your calculator, what keys you pushed, and how you get to where you're at. That person messes up, then the second person has a chance. I wouldn't keep points or scores or anything like that, but I would just say, okay, great job. Next 4. If you want to get really fancy, so you do a round of that. Anybody who didn't make the top 2, now they're their own group. So now those 4 people, somebody who didn't is going to have to get the top 2. You can keep doing kind of rounds like that until everybody ends up being one of the top 2, and everybody ends up going to the board and has to explain what they did and why. It's a little bit more complicated to remember, but you can always sit them in a class. You can always sit them in a group. All right, so 4 people, you sit down. Here's the equation, go, right? I got it, I have it. Or I got it, I got it. 2 people said they have it, 2 people don't. The 2 people that said they didn't have it, go back on this side of the classroom. All right, 2 people had to have it, go to the board. Explain what you did. First person, second person explain what you did. If the first person made a mistake, you 2 go to the other side of the room. You keep pulling from the side of the room where they haven't selected, where they haven't got first or second. And as long as you keep doing that, eventually somebody will get first and second in the class, so everybody will end up at the board having to explain what they did and why.
So when they go to the board, they stop participating on that side?
When they go to the board, and if they're correct, then they're over there and they're done. They're just observing at this point. The idea being that.
2 people that they don't have a 4. You said 2 people over there.
How many people in the class?
Let's say 25.
20, okay. So 25 people over here, you take 4, put them here.
Oh, you just do it 4 at a time?
4 at a time.
Oh, okay.
4 at a time, go. You 2 are good, you're out. These 2 go back in this group. Keep bringing them through until everybody eventually, somebody might end up by themselves.
Yeah.
But what you'll find happening is the students won't realize that until about halfway through, and they'll be like, wait a minute, I don't want to be on this side of the room over here. Oh, slow down now, slow down. So generally, if you're doing something like that, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, you kind of run out of time on the last 4 people. It's like, okay, we have to pick this up next week. So I generally kind of recommend that. But yeah, usually about halfway through, the people who were kind of phoning it in, they're like, well, I'm not going to be Mr. Slow Calculator here. I'm a freshman. I can't, I got other so you'll see that. And you can keep using that exercise over and over. And if something like that, you don't even really have to assign a point value to. Right. So, how's everybody feeling about that? So hopefully at this point you should feel, okay, I was able to identify a learning outcome that I want to move to an online environment. So instead of teaching it in the classroom, I'm out of the lecture business, I take that content, I move it to an online environment, and I assess to make sure the students have learned the content before they come to class. So you have that down. They come to class, some folks want to reinforce, that's perfectly understandable. Other folks, okay, now that you know the content, now we can do some student learning activities to help you further understand the content that you covered online in different ways. The idea being that if you have to build a city about a cell, you're going to remember. Because it's hard to forget with the sewage system. You're going to have to, those things kind of stick. Or if you're holding a human organ in your hand, you're going to remember that. That's something that holds with you, as well as the concepts and things like that. So that's active student learning in the classroom. That's the gist of flipping the classroom. All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
I think I'm a total proponent. The more the kids do, the less I have to.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, but I mean, teachers put all the time in ahead of time planning for those kinds of activities.
Sure.
But how much of the class do you think should be converted to that? Have there been any studies that say if you do 50% active learning, students have a better retention rate?
No, not like that. Well, no, I'm sorry, that's not true. I do not know offhand. There have been studies that have found that, but I don't know what they are enough to quote them off the. What you can do is send me an email, and I'll identify those articles and send them to you. But in general, active learning has been linked to positive outcomes amongst, especially in the STEM fields in particular. And when we're talking about almost 50% higher comprehension and things like that, as well as matriculating through class. So the outcomes are kind of, they're so startling that folks now are like, hey, Carl, I heard you do flip in the classroom, come talk to us type deal. It didn't always used to be that way. The jury used to be out, but it's pretty solid now.
Well, what about active learning and engaging, like some of us are focusing on non-leaders, who let you know right from the very beginning, say, well, I hate biology and I hate this class, and they're just apathetic about it. It's like, okay, no matter what you do, they don't get engaged because it's not their passion, which I can understand that. But I said, well, you still have to pass the class, though. Right.
Right. So, there are folks who will say, well, active learning makes people like, there's more, the students are more engaged, right? And the students are more engaged. You can hate biology, but to have to build a cell and go up and explain why this cell works, you're engaged in the material. So it makes it more difficult for you to kind of blow it off, right? If you're lecturing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 45 minutes, that's gone. That's gone. I care nothing about the lecture if I even show up. Do you have an attendance policy here? I don't know, some folks? Yeah, okay, so at least they show up here. Other schools is I just don't. I'll see you at the midterm and we'll just shake dice and see what happens. So there's that student engagement which leads to positive outcomes. So you're not gonna love biology more, but you're gonna know it better. That's the best I can do.
Sometimes I wonder if our goal isn't not as well defined as we should have it. When I teach non-science majors chemistry, my goal isn't for them to know chemistry. It's for them to be able to use those kinds of knowledge or problem-solving skills in their real life. So when you go to a physician and he starts giving you 15 different medicines, they know enough to say, whoa, what are you getting this pain for?
If that is your objective, if that's your learning outcome, then you want to not only online provide them with the drugs and et cetera, but you also in your active learning environment, active learning in classroom, you want to make sure you model that. Right. So, if your outcome is to be able to use chemistry in your everyday life, then your in-class activities need to be, okay, you were at the doctor.
You're cooking a meal.
You're cooking a meal, or you walk up and your kid has a glass of liquid. What can you do to determine what that liquid is or what it's not, et cetera. So if that's your goal, then you want to make sure the activities kind of match that goal.
Something similar to what you were saying with the non-majors. With my class, I had 3 sets, and I've been kind of stuck on this. I had 3 sets of different types of students. I had health and physical education, health and human performance, so they want to be coaches, athletes, or physical therapy. I have folks who are nursing, so they are trying to get into the nursing program.
Sure.
And then I have students who take it as an elective because it's going to be on the MCAT, so they want to go to med school.
Sure.
And they fall in those 3 categories. And so the way that I engage these over here who want to do coaching and athletics would probably be different if I had them alone than if I'm trying to teach all 3. And the general sentiment has always been, what I've been told is, well, we teach it at the base level. We're teaching at the lowest level anyway, so if they can't get it here, they can't get it anywhere. And I don't necessarily buy into that.
Sure.
And so the only thing I've been able to do is try to make it more personal. So for them, if I do a set of questions for the athletes, I may do a mixed martial arts case study. Whereas for the nursing, I may do a pregnant mother. Whereas for the biologist, I may do something a little more theoretical and try to do it that way. Cover the same idea,
sure,
but in different settings that relate more to them. But is there something else that can deal with 3 different mindsets? Because it's not necessarily that they're lazy.
Sure.
It's that they're engaged by something different, and it's hard to engage in 3 different mindsets versus 3 different levels of people.
Sure. I think it's an unrealistic expectation that you teach to the students' mindsets when you have 3 in the class. What I think you could do is now that you're doing the hybrid class, you have a lot more active learning activities you could do in the class. And because you have those, we can do a physical education, but everybody's getting physical education because nurses need to know what the PE teachers are telling their student. So one day you do nursing, then you can flip back so you can flip through them. but you don't have to present. But because you're nursing, you only get this. You only get this. No. The whole class gets nursing today. Next time, the whole class gets PE. As long as you're rotating through them, some students will be more engaged, or some students more personal than others. But at the very least, they still learn the content in a perspective they might not have thought of as part of the whole college experience. So,
I like that.
thanks.
I think another thing with that is the jigsaw method that we were talking about before. That's a good idea because I have the same issue because it's the same class that we teach where you have like two completely different sets of students. So like an in-class activity would be where, as you said, you give them a problem that's kind of more physical education based, and then you give the nursing students a separate problem that's more, maybe clinical based. And then you switch them around and you kind of see their approach to the problem. Where, how do the nursing students approach it? How do the PE students approach it? And they can kind of share their approach with the rest of the class. So they're not just kind of, one track, their thinking is just one-sided. So they kind of learn from.
So after you do that, you let them find what's common. What did you see that we both, that both groups had in common when they solved the problem? Would you do something like that?
Yeah, because they still have to know the basic concepts, but they see how it relates to different areas of their life or different areas, within the society. They can see how it relates to that.
And I agree with that, and I think that all of this will actually help me out quite a bit. The only other part of that is, there's a set of literature that I read recently that's talking about, practical application, clinical, not clinical application, but practitioner application, driving the performance of the student. So what I need to know for this versus what I need to know for that versus are we covering everything? And, do I just cover it at bare minimum where everybody gets the basics, or do I actually develop it in a way that this will be applicable? Because what they'll need going into Dr. Hughley's class and theirs will be more muscle, more bone, probably more skin, and if they do nutrition, digestion, and then cardiovascular. But stuff like reproduction, stuff like urinary system, although it will play a role, they don't go into as much on that side at the practitioner level. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I would suggest, two suggestions. First is, why don't you try to develop a course for each one, if that's possible. Okay, so that's on board. The second option is kind of sort of what we did for the workshop. That phobia activity. At the end of the day, everybody had the word phobia, but everyone had different words.
Right.
So my suggestion would be, this might be, I'm not sure how big the size of the class is, have groups where you have one of each majors in that group. The key word for the last activity was phobia, right? So have a key word for all three of them, but yet each one has to, explain something different.
From their perspective.
Exactly.
That's really good.
Exactly.
All right. So I'm going to talk about what I'm not going to talk about, right? Because we ran out of time. And actually, this was supplemental anyway. I just kind of brought along just in case we had time and folks were like, et cetera. So it was basically, I talked a lot about things you could do in the classroom, right? And we talked about active learning strategies, came up with some really great ideas. And we didn't talk very much about role play. And it's something I think a lot of folks, especially if you're not in the teaching, kind of the soft sciences, sociology, if you're not into the counseling, therapy, psychology, you generally kind of stay away from role playing. Like math folks, like we're not going to role play math. That's not going to. What's that going to do for me? But it can be extremely useful role playing math. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide these slides for you online, and you can read through them. You won't get you won't. But I'll put them online. You can look at them and you read it. But what you won't do is you won't be able to have a personal reflection about the role play because I won't have a chance to do it. But if we actually went through the process and did it, you would clearly understand how you can take a topic and through role play You can help students or people understand different perspectives and therefore increase your knowledge about a particular topic or area through role play. There's some very specific things you need to do it right, because it can go really wrong. All that stuff is kind of talked about here in the PowerPoint. So I would talk about defining role play, identifying steps in the process of creating role play, observer and participation in the role play. So I would normally go through that, but we don't have the time for that. So yeah. So just another active learning strategy that a lot of people kind of like, oh, role play, I'm not going to do that, but it's a really good one. Especially for somebody like you, where you're teaching a course where you have different interests in the course. That kind of lends itself to role playing, because now you can create active learning activities where, okay, you want to go to phys ed, you want to go to nursing. Nurse, you're going to play the phys ed person. Phys ed, you're going to play the nurse person. Here's the scenario that I created. Sit around, let's go. And then as they act it out, process it with the group, and then process it with the folks observing, you'll say, oh, I guess now I understand why this is important for me or why it's not important, et cetera. So that's the kind of thing you can do at role play to address the kind of thing you're talking about, but don't have the time to teach it here. So, all right. I was asked to do a question and answer where you can ask me questions and then I will answer them, or I will say I don't know, or I will just lie. Either one. So if you have any questions about me, where I work, what I do, what we talked about today.
I missed your introduction in the beginning, but what department do you work in?
Sure. My name is Carl Brown. I work in the Center for Excellence Teaching, Learning, and Assessment at Howard University. It is the faculty development center. Our mission is to work with faculty members to increase their ability to teach and develop a cadre of faculty members who are able to speak to the millennial students that we have coming through. So that's everything from technology to assessment to pedagogy. And we're not on high ground here at Howard. The only reason we have one is because accreditation came through and said, hey, where's your faculty development center? And magically, they found money to make a faculty development center. Before, there was no money for that, but it just magically appeared one day. It's about 10 years old. I've been there for 7 years. I've had the same director. She's retiring in a couple of years, actually. So that's the department. Do you have a faculty development center here?
We have Shelton. He's faculty development.
Oh.
Do we have an actual center?
Oh. Sir. Sir.
So we want to request something, we'll introduce again. No.
As long as he has a budget. Oh, yeah, people laugh at like budget. So there are a lot of schools who don't have faculty development centers. What universities have done is kind of piecemealed. So we use Desire to Learn. The IT people will teach us how to use Desire to Learn. A lot of departments are kind of like that. Our university, and actually there's a growing set of universities. Morehouse just got theirs a couple of years ago. It's a really great one. She's a great. They have a great director there. They have a faculty development center there. Their acronym is not as cool as ours, but that's why I don't remember what it is. But they're a great center there. So a lot of schools are developing, especially smaller schools like your school and a few other schools this size are developing faculty centers. And it takes the commitment of somebody, but it also takes a budget. And that's what a lot of folks don't. It can't just be kind of thing like, okay, you're faculty development now, but you're still teaching a half load. It's not going to work. It's actually it's more than a full-time job. We're woefully understaffed in ours. We have 2 instructors, myself and the director, so she's still directing and I'm still doing everything else. And we serve 1,200 faculty members. We teach all of the Blackboard workshops. By we, I mean me. We teach all of the distance learning seminars. We do all of the flipping the classrooms, course redesign. We do the HU teach. So it's a lot of work once you're there, but you have to be established. Otherwise, what you'll find is each department doing their own little thing, and it's not systematic across the university.
What about, I'm not sure if you guys have student aid or as far as like students that want either work study or students that want to pursue either IT that might want to intern or something?
Sure. No, we have a lot of students actually. Without the students, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, to be perfectly honest with you. We relegate we relegate a fair amount of responsibility to the students, and this is who we recruit. We have a pretty substantial IT department because everything that I talk about, we need resources and support for. So we develop online learning communities and things like that. So that means we do have a full-time IT manager and a programmer. The programmer was something we kind of really insisted. Everything else is done by students. So we have a student webmaster, student video editor, shoots, edit videos. I have 2 research assistants. And also for the Blackboard support, I have another 2 or 3 students that I'll bring in and then train them. As far as majors in particular, generally the folks in the back room, like the webmaster, it's generally kind of somewhere in that computer science and or animation type, art type person. But everybody else, I don't need a particular major. I can show you what you need to know and teach you how to work with faculty members. So because we're so open, we pick from everywhere. And yes, we go in and we try to poach work study because they're awesome because they don't show up on your bottom line. So I love those people the best.
Okay, when students conduct a workshop, what do you and your boss lady have to be the only one to conduct that workshop?
The faculty senate was insisted that students not provide hands-on workshop for faculty members. So students do not teach faculty members in workshops. We were insistent that we not work with graduate students. And this is the big one here now. So graduate students can't just come to our office to learn how to teach, even though theoretically a lot of them are going to graduate and go on to teaching positions. And well, that's right, you were there. Yeah, you couldn't just show up at our office unless you're the instructor of record. If you're the instructor of record on a course, then you have access to our facility. And the reason why is because we're not big enough. It's only 2 people. So that's a little bit how our center works. There are other models of centers. But how many faculty members at the school? Anybody? 400. So you can do it with a person. You can do it with a person, 2 assistants. You can have a faculty development a faculty development center with a full-time person dedicated to that job and a couple of graduates, or you don't have graduate, maybe 3 or 4 student assistants and a budget.
But before the faculty made that decision at the faculty senate, did they know the number of workers they were working with? Or they just, nobody?
Honestly, I wasn't there for that. It seemed to me a little short. Why did they only have 2 folks? But I know that they were already cutting out stuff. Okay. So I think when it came to negotiating, it's like, we're not going to do graduate school. We also don't do research, right? So you can't come to us and we can help you design a research project that you can just submit grants to. They wanted us to do that, and we were like, no, we can't do that. So it's kind of a negotiation. I think we got stuck being a little short-staffed, but we also don't have to do a lot of the large other things that some faculty members have to do. So.
You said it took you 4 years to get to this point. What were some of the problems you experienced from faculty members particularly?
Okay, so in regards to the 4 years, that was specifically about the flipping the classroom. From conception to kind of now we're rolling steady type deal. So the problems we had with that is one, faculty members didn't want to do it. It was like, hey, I know how to teach. Why do I have to go through all this? Even worse, where department heads, is this on? This should be on a cut. We'll pull it up for you.
Did you pay me to say that?
All right, so, what in the, Blackboard 1 basic course, teaching with smart classrooms, protecting your PC, presenting lectures with PowerPoint.
Then how's that?
Which one?
Presenting lectures with PowerPoint.
It's pretty good. We don't teach it very much anymore because everybody thinks they know PowerPoint, which is fun. But there's some best practices in there that go a long way that a lot of folks don't know. Getting the most out of the discussion board, most out of the chat room, using the Dropbox, making Teamworks work. Those are just Blackboard. No, that's in the course management system. So it'd be akin to your desire to learn Dropbox. So, any other questions? I hear folks packing up and leaving. Don't suppose anybody's going by the airport? No? All right.